set, guys?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Danvers Zoning Board of Appeals. It looks like we have a full house tonight, so I will ask that you please silence your cell phones and please no conversation while we're trying to operate here. We have a lot to get to. I'd like to start by introducing our 5 regular members of the board. Down to my right is Bob Signetti, Becky Kilborn. Our clerk is Ken Scholes. Myself, John Bowner, the chair. Jeff Sauer, and our 2 alternates are Ken Javinian and Corinne Doherty. If I could, I'm sorry, from the building department, we have our building inspector, Mr. Richard Maloney, and our Miss Everything over there, Kathleen Archibald. Do we have minutes to accept from our
Yes.
last meeting?
So moved.
Can I
Second.
get a motion in a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Since we do have a lot of cases tonight, like I said, we're going to try to buzz along. We'll get to all your comments from the public. I will talk to you about how our process works here. We will ask that once your application is read, you come up and speak into the microphone. We are on Danvers cable access, so please speak into the mic, announce who you are, your address, and from there, you will see the board will ask questions of the applicant. From there, we will go out to the audience and we will seek public comment. And part of the beauty of the open meeting law is then we will come back to the board for deliberations, which you will hear. At that point, we will tell you what your options are based on the will of the board and how the voting's going. If we deny your application, you must wait 2 years before you can come back. So, with that said, I think I got everything? I did. We are going to start with our continued cases, but we are going to go to one of our regular cases because we got to continue that one, most likely. So, if you could, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first case is Anthony Annaloro, docket 20-4849, requesting a variance to tear down a non-conforming garage and rebuild a single-family structure and a finding to add a single-family unit to a pre-existing non-conforming 2-family unit in accordance with Section 7, Table 2, and Section 3.10.3 of the Danvers zoning bylaws at 5 Loomis Ave, and this is Zone C1.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Somebody here on Loomis, yeah. If you could, just identify yourself and speak into the mic.
Anthony Alloro, 5 Loomis Ave.
Good evening. I think Mr. Maloney probably explained to you, we have a change here since you applied for this with the new zoning that went through. If I have that right, maybe I'll go to the building inspector and he can just clarify this all for us.
Correct. The new zoning took effect February 10th. The warrant was advertised back at the beginning of December, so technically, he may fall under the new zoning. What he's doing may be by right.
Okay.
We need to figure that out
Before we can go
He may
forward.
be back to the board. We don't know.
Right.
We need to get that question answered first.
So the recommendation out of this board is that you meet with both the building inspector, the town council, and figure out whether or not you need to be before ZBA or not. Obviously, if not, I guess they would refund his fee. Possibly.
We'll do something.
All right, but the recommendation is that we continue this to our next meeting, which is on March 16th. You okay with that?
I am.
Okay, so could I get a motion to continue this
So moved,
case?
Mr. Chairman.
And seconded?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll see you March 16th.
Thank you.
Or not.
Or not. Okay, so Ken, let's
Wow.
go to CBS. Sure.
Mr. Chairman, our next case is a continued case, Newbury Conifer Investment LLC, docket number 19-4845, requesting a variance to add a second sign to the front facade in accordance with Section 37.4A and B of the Danvers zoning bylaws at 311 to 313 Newbury Street. This is zoned in the highway corridor.
Thank you. And I take it you're Mr. McCoy.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
So we're here from, continuing from last month. petition that we have is to add a secondary wall sign to identify the Minute Clinic, which this store is currently being renovated right now as we speak. And we spoke about the code and how it relates to a second business in an existing building. And I worked with Mr. Maloney, we did a lot of research, and he went through a lot of documents to try to support if we fell under that by right law or if we needed the variance. It's pretty ambiguous and a little vague, and I think we came to the conclusion that, you know, it's not really applicable in this situation, so we would move forward with a variance request. But I would like to just paraphrase or read a little bit of that section of the code, because I still think it's really relevant
Okay.
to this, because it speaks specifically to what we're asking for. But again, it is ambiguous. So we're in a highway zone, and for section 37.4E, the bylaw reads, and I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit, in situations where more than one use in a structure exists on a lot, such as an office, a shopping center, and multi-tenant buildings, one freestanding sign shall be allowed, and one attached wall sign shall be allowed for each business or tenant, provided that it meets the criteria for section 37.5.4C, which says 10% of the facade, maximum 32 square feet. So I think we kind of meet that, but it's so ambiguous, we chose to move forward with the variance, but I thought it was relevant to address that
Sure.
Into the record, because I think it's definitely relevant in this case.
Before you move forward, let me just go to the building inspector and get his spin on it as well. Is that kind of how you see it as
Well,
well?
we agree on a lot of the points here. It is a separate entity, and we have had other, the old Danvers Savings Bank had multiple business entities, and we had to look at that, but that was in a different zone. The old downtown improvement district had kind of weird sign regs. In this case, we're looking at the Stop and Shop that has Citizens Bank. I think it's a Citizens.
Inside, yeah.
It's been many banks over the years, but we were trying to determine how that got there. We did some digging, did some research. And then the old sign bylaw just said you could cover 10% of your facade with signage.
Does Stop and Shop have a Citizen Bank sign outside?
Yes.
On their facade?
Right, and they got it by right, but the sign regs have changed. We agree it's a separate entity, but the fallback here is that CVS went and got a variance to put the signage that they have, the freestanding sign and the wall sign are there by variance. So I thought it would be the best thing is just
Just
to
re-up this
keep
variance,
it
yeah.
under the variance,
Okay.
right.
And I would go back to say that also in that section of the code, as far as a second business in an individual building, it talks about frontage and leased area of that facility, whatever it may be. The Minute Clinic in question does front Newberry Street. We've got about a 38-foot frontage that faces that. So we're not like in the back of the building. So
Right.
there's a little bit more information there. But again, I think we need to move forward with the process of the variance to an attempt to get the sign on the building.
Okay. Mr. McCoy, is anyone here from CVS? Can you come up and identify yourself for us?
Michael Leung from 311 Newbury Street, CVS, store manager.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Thank you. So in relates to the variance, we've got hardships that we have to identify. And so I'd like to go through those. Number one, the property is definitely unique in its shape and topography. We front two streets with a very unusual egress in and out of the store. We're tremendously set back from the street. We're screened from the street significantly, especially now after the years where all the trees have grown. So we're very much hidden. This was to such a degree when we were here in '07 for the original variance for the signage. It was mandated that we identify on the freestanding sign that the entrance is 200 feet ahead, because it's a very unique property. So I think in regards to that first criteria, I think we meet that, just as well as we met it back in '07. Number two is that the literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would involve substantial hardship to the applicant. I think it's pretty obvious that if we don't have the ability to brand the Minute Clinic and communicate to the public that there is a Minute Clinic within the facility, that is a hardship to that business. It is a licensed separate business. I did send out some supplements. I think everybody should have a copy of the licenses for the Minute Clinic. And the third criteria is granting of the variance will not result in substantial detriment to the public good or nullify substantially the purpose or the intent of the bylaw. It goes on to say that to permit such signs will not be danger to public health or safety or welfare based on the location of the sign or the construction of the sign. I don't think we have any issues with that. To permit and regulate signs that complement the land use. I think it's probably in the middle there, where we're complimenting. I don't think we're degrading, but we do need to advertise the store. Preserve and enhance the aesthetic environment. Again, it's kind of a neutral statement as well. And to provide standards, guidelines, and direction for appropriate signage. I think we meet that. If you go back to my opening statements, when we talk about the code for a business within an existing building, your maximum sign would be 32 square feet. We're only asking for 15.81 square feet. It's really a minimal request, I think, for the ability to, in some manner, brand and communicate to the public and CVS's existing customers that there is a Minute Clinic within the building. With that, I can take any
Is
questions.
that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, why don't we start down there with you, Corinne?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
I don't have any questions either.
Jeff?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you. I have a question for the building inspector. As a separate entity in this building, don't they by right have to be able to advertise their business on the building?
In a traditional, like a strip mall setting, the language is, lease line to lease line. This is a little different.
Okay.
I agree, it's a separate entity.
All right.
But like I said, I'm falling back on the fact that 2007, this board granted variance.
A variance for the original signs.
But they
Yeah.
chose, they could have had two wall signs of 32 square feet, or they could have had one wall sign and one freestanding sign of 32 square feet.
Right.
They chose, they wanted more signage.
Okay.
And so this board granted the variance for the signage of the building, so I think it's pertinent. Again, I agree on a lot of the facts, but I think because there's a sign variance on the property.
This falls under that
Continue with it.
umbrella.
All right. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Becky?
No questions.
Thank you. And Bob?
I have a couple of questions. I assume that the sign is the one, it's going to face Route 1? It's on that wall?
Yes, sir. I did send in some photo comps. I have one with me as well, a large one. I don't have
I see a little, yeah, I see, I got one with a little
He's got a
tiny,
picture.
That's the sign, so
All right.
it's kind of small.
yeah, I assumed it would be there anyway. It makes more sense than on the other street
Yes.
anyway. And the lettering, is it going to be smaller than the CVS lettering?
Yes.
Same?
Oh, absolutely. It's, the drawing that you have
Yeah.
is to scale. If you look at the photo comp, I believe the letters that are on the building currently are 36 or 30 inches, I don't recall. But these letters here, I think they're 16 inches high, so it's about half the size in height. It's the same type of methodology, they're individual illuminated letters.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. I have no further questions.
Thanks, Bob. How long has Minute Clinic been there?
I can't answer that. You know?
Can't say either. Got there 6 years ago.
Was it there when you got there?
It was there. I think
Okay, so I guess my question is, every time I go there, there's a 2-hour wait. And I don't know how it's detrimental to MinuteClinic to not have this sign. So I guess you answered my question, though, so it's been there 6
Yeah.
years at least.
Yeah, so I can tell you that, and I think the board would be aware that there's substantial construction going on over at the store right now.
Sure,
And that falls into a separate program that CVS has just rolled out. I believe this is going to be the first store in the Northeast that's going to have this, as it relates to a new thing that enhances the MinuteClinic. It's called the Health Hub. And it's an expanded services to the MinuteClinic, so you don't wait for 2 hours, and some other services that they're offering. So with this new rollout of the health hubs, and again, this is the first one I know in the Northeast, they think it's important to make sure they get the branding on them.
So how is it currently advertised? Just with that small window sign? I think there's one that hangs in the window. It's
Yeah.
white,
Yeah, and I
right?
don't know, yeah, there may be a window sign there, and
Well,
they may have, you
again,
know, they may get referrals and stuff, but
I understand, I guess I question the need for it, because I just think, you know, with online and the way that MinuteClinic's driven, I don't think, and people kind of default on most CVS's have MinuteClinic.
that's absolutely not accurate.
Okay, but the way they're checking it is through their phone. They're not driving around looking at the sides of buildings. But anyways, that's just more of a comment. Is the sign lit?
Yes, sir.
And it'd be same hours of
Yes, sir.
operation as CVS
Yes, sir.
sign? Okay. Any additional questions from the board?
No.
Let me go out to the public. Anybody here to speak on CVS at 311, 313 Newbury Street? None? We'll come back to the board. Corinne?
I would vote for this.
I would vote for this, too.
I would vote for this, Mr. Chairman.
I have no problem with this.
I'll vote for this.
I also vote for it.
Yeah, I'll go with the will of the board. I don't see the need for it, but I will vote for it. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the variance from Section 37.5.4 of the Danvers zoning bylaw for additional wall signage of 15.28 square feet per the plan submitted. The hardship is stated on the application.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Good luck.
Thank you
luck.
so much.
You can meet Rich in the hallway.
So,
There's a couple seats
folks,
up here.
there's some seats up here if you want to come and have a seat.
I'm gonna give Nancy a minute.
Yeah.
Nancy, you're next. Give you a minute to get up. This is supposed to be 3. This is 3. This is supposed to be 3. It's marked incorrect.
All right, you want to go ahead and read it?
You all set, Nancy? Okay. Our next continued case is Susan N. Prentice Trust, docket number 20-4847, requesting a variance and finding to replace commercial buildings with one multifamily residential building in accordance with section 3.10.3 and table 2 of the Danvers zoning bylaws at 141 Pine Street. This is zoned R1.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I have to recuse myself. from this.
Okay. Kathleen, I'll have Corinne sit on this case. Go right ahead.
Chairman, my name Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, the 141 Pine Street LLC, with me is John Thompson, Gordon Thompson, and Cheryl McDonald, representing the LLC. Also with me tonight is the project engineer, Scott Cameron. We appeared before you at your last meeting in January, and we made a full presentation at that time with regard to the property at 141 Pine Street, which is located in the Residence 1 zoning district, but which is a property that has both non-conforming buildings as well as commercial non-conforming uses on the property. It's a multi-tenanted property. It's had a number of non-conforming uses over the years, anything from offices to landscaping businesses and outdoor storage of materials, and we did discuss the existing conditions of the property. And the desire of the applicant to substitute non-conforming uses and to bring the property more into conformance with the bylaw by eliminating the commercial use on the property and bringing residential uses to
I'll just stop
the
you for a
property.
minute. Though everybody that's in the hallway, there's plenty of room to stand over here if you want, because you're not going to be able to hear out there if you'd like to come in here. There's plenty of room. There's a couple seats there if you, sorry.
Continue.
Thank you. The application that we had originally filed proposed one building consisting of 29 units. We had graphics of that building for you, and at the end of that meeting, we received a lot of comments, both from the board as well as from the audience members. And since then, the applicant has worked with his design team to try to address those comments. And last week, we submitted to you some revised plans, which we put together quite quickly and diligently to have those before you for tonight's meeting. And we think those address the issues that we heard with the original plan, specifically density, massing, height, and parking. And I think from the plans that we have submitted to you for consideration tonight, we were able to address those particular concerns in a way that we hope that you'll agree with us will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, but might fit more in keeping with the neighborhood as we heard the comments at the last meeting. So what we are now proposing, we have revised the proposal by cutting the number of units by more than half. The original 29 units has been decreased to 12 units. And this is a different concept. This is not the concept that we presented to you, which was one building with 29 units. What we've done is we've reduced the number of units down to 12, and we have separated the units so that the massing is very different. These are townhouse-style units, and they are lower in both actual size as well as in mass and appearance. So the plan that we have, and this is difficult for, I think to say, the setup of this room is a little difficult for people to see.
Sure.
The plans, but this is the plan that was that we have presented to you for consideration tonight. This is Pine Street here, and we have an existing commercial building that's located here that we discussed at the last meeting, and an existing commercial garage in the back of the site here. This proposal, we are showing 12 residential units at the original building that's located at the front of the commercial building that's located at the front of the site. That is being replaced by a 4-unit building. The garage in the back is being replaced with a 2-unit building. And then we are proposing 2 3-unit buildings here. The plan does say a 2-family, this should be a 3-family here, for a total of 12 units. As we discussed at the last meeting, the site now is almost entirely paved or hard packed. As you will see from this colored rendering, we've picked up a lot of green space here. This proposal has 2,000 square feet of usable open space for every unit. In the R1 zoning district, the requirement is only 1,000 square feet. So we're actually doubling the amount of usable open space under the bylaw in the residential one zoning district. We have the rail trail here, Crane Brook, and again Pine Street here, and the alarmless company property is here. So I think color rendering kind of tells you the story when it comes to usable open space. Parking, at the last meeting on our original proposal, we had 1.4 parking spaces per unit. That would have required a waiver from the planning board when we get to site plan approval. This plan complies with the parking requirement under the zoning bylaw, providing 2 parking spaces for every unit. The design, I think, is perhaps the most remarkable change, other than the significant reduction in the units. We've presented to you in your packages for consideration tonight. This is the design of the proposed units. The duplex unit, which is taking place of the garage, commercial garage in the back, is a duplex unit. This is the 3. We will have 2 buildings of 3. And then this 4-plex is the building that's taking place of the commercial building out towards Pine Street. We brought the building down considerably and the massing down considerably. The height as defined under the zoning bylaw for the 4-plex out front is 24 feet in height. The duplex and the triplex have a height as defined under the bylaw of 21 feet. The height permitted in the R1 zoning district is 30 feet in height, so we're lower than the R1 zoning district. We have some renderings. We have this area for these, but this is the duplex. Which we think is certainly quite attractive. Getting back to a more traditional design, the design of the building that we originally showed you was different. It was a little more unusual. This is more in keeping with traditional Danvers townhouse style. This is the 3. We have 2 of those. And then the 4-unit building looks like this. It's a little higher, again, 24 feet in height, so it's a little higher than the other design. The 4-plex does not have garages. The duplex and the triplex have garages. So, in addition to reducing the number of units, separating to reduce the mass, separating it out into different buildings, we've also created different types of housing here. So we've got 3 different types of townhouses, varying in size, varying in depth, and the 4-plex out in front, they do not have garages. So offering a variety of price points, a variety of styles and options that the residents could choose from. As we discussed at the last meeting, the site itself currently is very disturbed. It's almost entirely paved or hard pack. This is the site looking at it from the rear toward Pine Street. This is the rear of the site. This proposal allows us the opportunity to clean this up, to create more green space, to create some needed housing, and to eliminate the commercial use from this residential district going forward. This is more in keeping with the zoning bylaw and the uses permitted in the Residence 1 zoning district. We think it's certainly an appropriate use of the property and will be an attractive addition and will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what is already there. One final point, the structures as we are proposing them are not more non-conforming than the existing structures. They come no closer to the side setbacks than the existing structures do. Finally, at the last meeting, we discussed that we had met with the Affordable Housing Committee before we came in at the last meeting, and since we made such a substantial revision in the plans, we did have an opportunity to meet with the Affordable Housing Committee at their meeting last Thursday, and we do have a letter from them. We had initially suggested a monetary donation towards the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and we spent an hour and a half with the Affordable Housing Trust at their meeting on Thursday night. You do have a letter from them, but the request was, rather than a monetary donation to the trust, that we find an off-site unit that we will make available for affordable rent at 70% of the area median income as a donation towards Danvers affordable housing, although this project does not trigger the inclusionary housing bylaw requirements. This is not a project that is required to meet the affordable housing component. However, the developer wanted to meet with the Affordable Housing Committee, and actually that conversation went beyond just this project, and we had a good discussion about partnerships between the developer going forward and the Affordable Housing Trust to create some more affordable housing. So we did, again, meet with the Affordable Housing Trust, and I believe they were satisfied, as indicated, with the letter that they submitted to you today with regard to the agreement that we came to for an affordable unit, a rental unit, affordable for 15 years. I think that is it at this
That's
point.
it, huh?
We did attempt to address, and I think we did address the concerns that we heard at the last meeting, and made a sincere attempt to bring down the density substantially, bring down the mass, address the parking so that we have the parking requirement met under the bylaw, while still providing a change from a commercial use in a residential zone to a residential use in a residential zone. And certainly we think that this is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the commercial uses that you have on this site and the appearance of this site and its impact on the neighborhood. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Attorney McCann. We have a number of letters, some that did not come in with addresses we will not read into record. The others we will read into record. We also have a letter from the Affordable Housing Trust, which we will read in first. So, Mr. Clerk, if you may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bear with me, we have quite a few letters here. This is from the Danvers Affordable Housing Trust. Dear members of the board, as its meeting on February 19th, 2020, the Danvers Affordable Housing Trust was presented with a revision to the Thompson Company's proposed project located at 141 Pine Street. Given the reduction of the number of units from 29 to 12, the Thompsons also wanted to revisit the formerly agreed upon inclusionary component. I write to you to outline what this trust and Thompsons agreed to last week's meeting. I think he meant to say last month's meeting. After much discussion, the trust voted 5 in favor and 2 opposed to accept an off-site 2-bedroom rental affordable unit in Danvers at 70% AMI for a term of 15 years. The trust will continue to offer a cash contribution towards marketing for the SHI, which was agreed previously. The occupancy of the off-site unit must be completed before the final occupancy permit of the 141 Pine Street development is issued. It is our understanding that this project requires a funding from the Zoning Board of Appeals that the proposed development would be less detrimental than the existing non-conforming commercial uses. And if granted, may also require site plan review before the planning board. The trust recognizes that both boards need to weigh many issues when deciding on the permits which may affect the proposal as it was presented, up to and including whether the project moves forward at all. If the project does gain your approval, however, we ask that you consider our recommendation when making your decision. Gardner Trask, Chair.
Thank you, Ken. If you could read the letters.
Yes. I am writing in opposition to the variance requested at 141 Pine Street to build a larger residential building complex. Pine Street is a main artery through the town that becomes very congested, starting as early as 3 p.m. and lasts through 6 to 7 p.m. The traffic continues to back up on Adams and Hyde Street. Recently, a developer constructed 4 condos on Pine Street, which I believe have added to the traffic issues. Additionally, the rehab of the old Sylvania building on Sylvan Street, which is nearly half utilized, empties traffic out onto Pine at the Hobart Street light. The enormous application at hand will worsen the already congested roads. The current plan would be 29 units according to the zoning bylaws. The parking needed for this complex would be 58 cars. That is not included each additional spot needed for dwelling units with over 2 bedrooms. In conclusion, I request the board deny the finding and variance of this property and not add to our current traffic problem. There is no hardship, only greed. Regards, the Bartletts, 8 Bow Street in Danvers.
Okay.
Can I respond to these as you go along?
Let me get them all out. How about that?
You would give me a break, but that's okay.
Read who it's from first.
Well, I didn't really know who that was. Didn't really, just had that.
That's, I'm sorry.
This is from William Hickey, 160 Pine Street. I'm writing you today as a resident of 141 Pine Street. I wanted to voice my opinion to the construction of any building or structure at 141 Pine Street in Danvers. The proposed location would ruin the benefits of the Rebecca Nurse Homestead open space and would be an eyesore to the street, more so than the current state. We hope to communicate more with the zoning board and hope you will do the right thing and keep the open space, not wreck a history area for the good of some developer. Please don't destroy our street and neighborhood. This letter is from Paul McNulty, 20 Holton Street. I will be away for 2 weeks and not able to attend the ZBA meeting regarding the development of 141 Pine. I would like to pass on my request that the town not allow such a large structure on the site, and in fact stick what our bylaws call for, 6 units. My concerns are twofold. One, with the close proximity to the Great Danvers Historical Site, Rebecca Nurse Homestead, I fear the character of this historical site would be significantly diminished with a large development on 141 Pine. The Rebecca Nurse Homestead draws many visitors to Danvers and hosts many historic events on the property. It would be a shame for those visitors to lose the 17th century ambiance currently found at the site. The Alarm List Company would suffer, as would the town of Danvers. Any development should take into account the special historic nature of the nearby Rebecca Nurse Homestead. 2.
That applies.
Okay.
They've changed it, so.
Right. To 12.
Summarize.
Beyond the above point, other than raised concerns about sewer capacity, traffic, noise, and general lower quality of life from such a large development, these should be considered as well. Adding more residential units in Danvers is a good thing, especially if some are affordable, but at this location, we should stick to the smaller numbers required by Danvers law. Paul McNulty. This is from the Hammond family, 5 Bucher Road. I was surprised to recently learn the application for the 141 Pine Street project was still being discussed and be voted on. This parcel is located in Residential 1, where it is my understanding that 6 units are allowed for this parcel in accordance with the town laws. The Selectmen, Planning Board, Zoning Board, and town people created the bylaws to keep our community from overcrowding, decrease traffic congestion, and remain a town, not a city. These developers tend to shoot high knowing they will get rejected and settle for less as a compromise. Even at that, Pine Street is the wrong place for this project. For these reasons, I request that you reject the applicant's request, keep Danvers a town, the Hammond family. This is the last one we have.
Make sure you read the address, please.
Yes. Lisa Sweeney, 21 Abington Road. I am writing this letter to you as a member of the zoning board to express my complaint against the proposal of the development of land at 141 Pine Street. I urge you and the rest of the zoning board members to deny the approval for development in such a close proximity to the historic Rebecca Nurse homestead. Perhaps the town could purchase the property and use it as an extension of the rail trail for parking. It could also serve as parking for historical reenactments that the town has during Family Festival. The town of Danvers prides itself on history. Please don't allow this to happen. The Rebecca Nurse homestead is an important piece of an early American history that should be protected for future generations to come, just as previous generations have done for us.
Read this one here, from this person. starts
No, I don't have that. That's this, right? Yeah. The final one is from Michelle Maurice, 3 Scarlet Lane. I am asking for a no vote on February 24th on the Prentice Trust docket 20-4847. The property located at 141 Pine Street is located one of the most significant sites in our nation's history, the Rebecca Nurse homestead, and a large recreational attraction, the Danvers Rail Trail. Oh, good more. As we plan our town, it is important to protect and preserve our history for future generations and to provide places for a variety of recreational activities. Danvers Alarm Company owns and operates the Rebecca Nurse homestead. They provide tours, education, training, recreation, and have the property featured in films. This, the only site offering related to the witch trials, is the most important historic location in Danvers. Visitors are impressed by the homestead and are interested to see and learn more of our town. Tourism produces jobs, preserves cultures, and provides educational opportunities. The alarm company needs our support. Any development outside of recreation and tourism is detrimental to the historic landscape. The Danvers Rail Trail has been a wonderful addition to the recreational activities in town. The neighboring existing lot has often been used as parking lot for the visitors of the rail trail. During Little League season, it is not possible to park in or near the suggested Tapley Park. Quoted from the Salem Evening News, February 4th, 2020, McCann suggested, "Start with a clean slate in regarding to zoning." She is absolutely correct. The property should be rezoned to promote and protect its neighbors. To promote the history of Danvers, to protect the history of the Salem witch trials, to promote tourism, which in turn creates jobs. The time is now. Vote no. Thank you for your time.
All right, Attorney
Did you do
McCann,
this one?
would you like to respond? Is there,
Just
we
make
got
sure
all
we got all of
Yes.
them.
Yep.
You did that
Yep.
one? Okay, and these, you
And
read
the other ones don't have an address.
this one?
addresses.
You read?
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to respond to a few things
No.
that we heard. Number one, going down the list from my notes here, the first letter referred to a variance. This is not a variance application. This is a finding application for an alteration of a non-conforming use, in fact, a substitution of a non-conforming use under Section 3 of the zoning bylaw. It also spoke to the original application, I think, as most of these letters did, which was the 29 units, which has been cut in more than half, down to 12 units. The second letter referenced this property shouldn't be developed because of its proximity to the Rebecca Nurse homestead, and that it should be kept as open space, as we can see from this group of photos taken very recently of the property. It is not open space. It is a commercial property. It is a multi-tenanted commercial property and has been for many, many years. It is not open space. It is privately owned. It is not owned by the town. And it is a commercial property. We think that by bringing residential uses, particularly the residential use that you have before you tonight, as revised after the comments that we received, we have a proposal that will be certainly more in keeping with the history of the area and with the Rebecca Nurse property. And in fact, the property is zoned for residential uses. It is not zoned for commercial uses. The property is not zoned for, to be a tourist attraction. It is a commercial site. And this is a photograph taken from the property looking across Pine Street. This is the neighborhood that the property is located in. Directly across the street, we have commercial development in the Tapleyville zoning district, and the large 60 feet anyway, building that's located directly across the street and very much visible from this site. We think that the units that we are proposing and the design of the units that we're proposing are more in keeping with what we want to have in this neighborhood, what the bylaw intends for this neighborhood. And really, we need to be realistic as to what is out there now and what we're working with. This is a privately owned commercial property that's owned for residential use. And we did hear what was said at the last meeting, and we tried to respond very sincerely and made a significant attempt to do that, to bring down the type of development to a different design than what we had proposed with the original permit application. And I think that is what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Attorney McCann. Okay, we'll start down there with you, Becky.
Okay. Oh my, a lot to talk about. Can we review the, just to start with the height of the buildings? Because the 2 and 3 family unit buildings, the plans we got don't have any height on them, and I thought you gave us a different height for the 4 units, so I'm just want to confirm.
Okay, so the 2 and the 3, with height as defined under the zoning bylaw. The original proposal that we showed you at the last meeting was
30 feet.
And it was a flat roof.
Right.
Under the bylaw, you measure to the top of a flat roof building.
Okay.
All right? Under the bylaw, however, when you have a pitched roof, you measure to the midpoint. So under the bylaw definition, we brought the building down significantly. The 2 and 3 unit buildings have a height as defined to the midpoint of 21 feet.
Okay.
The fourplex had a dimension on it of 29.
29, right.
But that was to the peak.
Okay.
So as defined under the bylaw, it would be 24 feet.
Is that correct? Okay.
So 21 for the...
21, 21, and 24.
24.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
3 at 21.
correct.
Thank you.
And, okay, and then, so just to be clear on the number of bedrooms, we went from 29 units to 29 units to 12 units.
Yes.
But the 29 units were 1 bedrooms, and the
Yes.
20 and the 12 units are going to be 2 bedrooms. So in terms of bedrooms, we are going from 29 bedrooms to 24 bedrooms.
That's right.
Is that
These
correct?
are all 2-bedroom units.
Okay.
Originally, the last original presentation was 29 one-bedroom units.
Right. Okay.
And they were large one-bedroom units. I
They
think
were.
you had
They were
mentioned
as big
very
as
large.
2 bedrooms,
Right.
units.
These
Yeah,
are all 2-bedroom townhouse styles.
okay,
So
okay,
they're up and down stairs, individual entrances.
okay, okay. And on the site plan, can you talk a little bit about the retaining wall and the height of that, the width of it, what it will be like? I know that.
Cameron can certainly speak to that.
How is he feeling?
Yeah, he's healthy.
Anyone else?
Probably heard it. It's going around.
Yeah,
Scott, if you can just identify
Yeah,
yourself.
thank you for having me. For the record, my name is Scott Cameron with Lauren Cameron Group, 66 Elm Street in Danvers, Massachusetts. So yeah, the distinct, the retaining wall here. So the elevation of the abutting property, the homestead, is around elevation, let's say it goes from 37 to 44, let's say an average about elevation 40 there. The elevation on the site is around elevation 33. Talking about
7 feet?
6 to 7 foot retaining wall. And then there would be, we haven't designed, obviously at this phase, we haven't designed what type of wall. It would more than likely be some sort of a block type of wall. And I allowed for 5 feet here in order to construct that, which is plenty of depth for a relatively short wall. So again, 6 feet, I'm 6 feet tall.
okay, so it's not like 20 feet high or anything. It's hard to tell when you're looking at that dirt and see how much you're gonna have to, cut that back. Okay. Okay, so the only, maybe this is a question for you also, is since you went from the 1 building to 4 buildings, how did you think about where to place those buildings? Because it would have been nicer to get some better setbacks now that you're into the smaller buildings. I like to see not more than 50% of the setback. So, for instance, the front yard setback is 40 feet under the zoning bylaws, and you have 13 feet. And then the side yard, 30 feet, and you have 7 feet. So
Those are the existing.
I understand that, but you have the ability to these are new buildings, so you understand the question.
I do, yeah. It's a good question. In Vince's point, yeah, there was a lot of emphasis put on the existing non-conforming nature of the site.
Right,
We certainly did not want to exacerbate anything, and we certainly did not, we're bringing anything closer to any of the lot lines. One of the reasons why I felt better about the placement of these buildings, and these were built in, is because of that elevation change. We weren't putting it at an elevation where this is going to be above and kind of towering over the property next door. These are tucked down below, so you're almost, the story is almost below the property next door. So you're kind of at that second
Right.
level story. So I felt better about that. There's been other development site plans where where things were at grade, and that the height and the proximity is much more noticeable. In this case, especially with some of the vegetation and what, eventually will be put together, the landscape plan, we felt there was a really good way to tuck these in, conceal them, and not make them any closer to the lot line than where they are now. So we did make,
so you worked off the existing
We worked off
buildings
this,
in
and
terms
then-
of where you placed
yep.
the
and then,
new
of course,
buildings.
On this side, where this currently is all open, it's all
Right.
very visible, and this is the rail trail corridor here, the Crane Brook. So we did want to make sure we held the setbacks on this side, which are for 30 feet. You have a 30-foot side and a 40-foot front. And also with the proximity of the Crane Brook, where we're looking at environmentally, trying to pull back what is degraded pavement and gravel and things. So we're looking at it sort of from an environmental perspective too, and kind of beautifying this key corridor
Okay.
through this area.
Well, we appreciate that, or I appreciate that you looked at this, and I like the buildings, I'll save it for my comments, but way better than what we had before. So I'll let everybody else talk and then maybe come back to me. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Becky. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question. Res 1 zoning for 7 units is 52,500 square feet. How big is this lot?
49,500.
No further questions.
Thanks, Ken. Jeff?
I guess I will save comments for the comments. I don't think I have any questions.
Thank you. Ken?
So the total square footage of the original plan, the 29 units, that one building, what was that versus the square footage all added up of these 4 units?
Gross square footage all added up?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Go to my project engineer.
If I can go down to Ken, I'd also like to know the footprint before versus the footprint now.
Okay. And also the footprint of such.
It's getting hot. They wanted to turn the heat up.
I should have asked
So
Mitch about that. So the original building was 61 feet by approximately 155 feet, around 9,800 square feet in footprint size.
How much?
9,800?
9,800.
Times 3 stories, so just a little under 30,000 square feet in gross floor area. We're looking at floor area. These buildings here, I'm just gonna get my calculator out, bear with me.
Thank you.
The dimensions are all on the plan. So the
We can
total
open the
footprint
windows.
area for all 4 buildings is 10,800 square feet over 2 stories. So we're about
21,000.
30% less gross floor area as far as the gross floor area on the property. Again, it's an approximation of the sizes. The dimensions are all on here, so you can calculate them.
I just thought you had a quick number, so I just didn't want to sit here and do math.
So I brought the tools tonight, just in
All right.
case. Thank you.
Yep.
Any additional questions?
Yes. So also, you're going to still cut into this hill where the trees are in between the Rebecca Nurse property or the alarm, Danvers alarm list property, and there. So you're going to cut into that hill, and there's trees there. And what about the roots and everything there?
It's a good question. Where we haven't fully designed this, there are some areas, yes, where we'll be cutting in. There are some areas where we wouldn't be, where it's actually cleared and it's cut and it's into that property. So there's certainly going to be a lot of emphasis placed onto the proximity of any trees on the abutting land. We wouldn't be able to impact those trees. We're not, we're not there with the design of this at this phase of the project. This is a lot of stuff we would look at in a site plan review phase with a landscape architect on board who's proficient with this type of work. But there's definitely opportunities here to not have as much excavation, and to the extent we can minimize walls and excavation and site work, that's all in the best interest of everybody. We need to preserve what we can and not impact any trees next door.
Yeah, because that's a nice buffer with those trees,
I agree.
obviously. I have no other questions right now.
Thanks, Ken. Corinne?
Nancy, you said that the new plan now has 24 parking spaces, 2 per unit. So I see 8 along the side where the Rebecca Nurse Homestead is. So I'm assuming those 8 spaces are for the 4 unit that do not have garages. So does that mean, and I looked at the plans, does that mean that there are 2 garage spaces for each unit in the 2 3s and the 2?
No, these are designed because they're single ownership or occupancy to be stacked. So you have the garage space and then the parking space. But most of these driveways are 16 feet wide, so they're wide enough to stack, keep 1 car off to the side and still be able to back out, or put 2 cars side by side in the driveway. It'd be tight, but 16 feet is enough width.
But there's 1 indoor space and 1
One-
outdoor space.
And so the outdoor space is in front of the garage?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and these are units for sale, right? These are condos. These aren't rental units owned by one person.
Most probably, the market bears on it. It's anticipated that these will be for sale units. They don't have to be.
Okay. Okay, and if you don't need approval, what is the purpose of having the Affordable Trust involved in this project?
This board has often asked whether we have consulted with the Affordable Housing Trust, even on projects where we don't have to comply with the inclusionary bylaw. And so we did that. The Thompsons wanted to have that dialogue also. We wanted their support for the project, particularly under the 29 unit, because it was a different design. It was a different type of project than what Danvers had seen before. So that's why, to have that dialogue so that we can say to you that we've met with the Affordable Housing Trust. And the Thompsons did want to participate in the affordable housing, even though it's not required under the bylaw to meet those guidelines.
Okay, and the 29 units, those were going to be rental units, though,
Those
correct? Okay. Okay,
Any additional?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Corinne. Attorney McCann, so I just want to come back around here and make sure I've got all my notes correct. I think according to Scott, the initial proposal was about 30,000 square foot,
Yep.
the gross square footage, and this one's 21,000? Sound about right? What is the square footage of the two-bedroom units in both the 2 and 3 families living space?
All right. In the duplex, the living space is about 1950. And Karen, you'll correct me if I'm 50. And in the 3, it's about 1840, the living space.
Okay.
The fourplex, those are smaller units, 960.
And I think Jeff asked a question on the, or someone asked a question on the midpoint on the roof, so I understand that height. Is there currently a retaining wall there?
Yes.
There is. So you guys are just going to take out what's there and improve upon it?
It's, I wouldn't say improve upon it, I would say we would design the site to fit as effectively as possible.
Okay, I think this goes to Becky's question. Our setback's 8 feet, correct, in R1? Side setback? Or does that not apply where we're doing multis? I guess I'll go to Rich on that.
No, it's
30 feet,
It's 30.
It's 30 feet from
right here.
Yeah, but wait a minute,
One and two families is 8 feet side.
okay, so it's because it's a multi.
Multifamily special permit projects are more bigger, 30 feet and 40 feet between structures.
But you're not looking for a special permit.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's right. So they're under refinement.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to understand.
Yeah.
You're trading a non-conforming use
of the commercial use for
or
res.
something that the
Yeah.
board has to determine whether it's more
Right.
detrimental.
Okay, and, yeah, I know we gotta move along, or Bob Signetti's probably gonna fall asleep on me, so. I'll go have a cigar. All right, any additional questions from the board?
Did we get the answer on the footprint?
I think we did.
Yes, yeah. I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
So it seems like, John, you think that they're, God bless you. You think that they're going to preserve the original railroad tie wall, which seems like, how many feet is that retaining wall in front of the retaining wall that you want to put? So there's a hill there. So you're going to cut back from that original railroad tie wall into the hill and put another.
A new wall.
A new wall.
Potentially, but I will say a wood wall is typically not something
Right.
that has a long lifespan.
Yeah, no, I get that part.
So when I say we would look at this and design it properly. So if it makes sense to leave that there, we would leave it there. Odds are it would come out and be replaced with something that was designed to current codes.
And that would be part of planning.
Yeah, it's certainly something we would look very closely at the planning phase.
Yeah, but how far is the original wall from the wall that you propose?
It varies. In some locations down here, it's in the same spot.
Yep.
As it comes in, the railroad tie wall does come out.
It
into the
arcs out.
property. It arcs
Yep.
out. And then there's a block wall actually back here on this side of the property, which is a little further out.
So what is the farthest point where it arcs out? Like 6 feet? Or more, it looks like. I
Yeah,
can't
it's
tell.
You know, it's a 20 scale plan, so
Okay.
it's about 15 feet.
15 feet, okay.
see
That's a
how
lot.
The parking kind of goes with that too, so there's an opportunity here to preserve
Yeah.
some of that.
Okay. So you're digging out a lot, and there's a lot of tree roots and other stuff in there.
Again, potentially, but we would have to look
Yep.
at the trees, and I haven't, we haven't gotten to that phase where we're looking at, we have an arborist and people looking
Yep.
closely at these things.
Understood.
Okay.
Good, Ken?
Yep.
Any, Becky, you had an additional question?
I'll wait after the
Okay.
comments.
So I'm going to go to the audience. I just want to clarify, we've had a lot of letters in opposition. If you have new points to make that we haven't already read, please come up, state your name and your address, and you're welcome to make a comment. But in interest of moving along, please stick to that. With that said, a
They
show
can
of hands.
speak if they want to speak.
Yep.
you
Show of
can't tell
hands,
them
yep.
they can't
We'll go over
speak.
right back there.
Ann Roach, 159 Logan.
Now come up to the microphone, please.
Either
Either one works.
We're on TV, so we need to be able to hear you.
So I don't think this was brought up, but even though it is a commercial spot, that is used by baseball people and in practicality. I don't think.
We're not here about that.
But, all right, so I guess I have so many problems with this plan. Traffic is number one. I think anything that's going to increase traffic in that neighborhood is completely unacceptable. I have an issue with, and I know these are all points that are already brought up, so I'm not going to say anything else, with proximity to Beckeners too, so. And I haven't met, as a longtime resident of the town, taxpayer, I have not met one person that is in favor of this project.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David McKenna, address is 383 Andover Street, but I'm also a founding member of the Danvers Alarm List, who owns the Rebecca Nurse property right next door. One question first, does this permit require a simple majority or super majority?
This would require a simple majority.
Simple, okay. One comment I'd like to make as far as the retaining wall, this is going to be awfully close to our property line, and as has been stated, we're concerned about the trees that form a buffer there now. Whether you either remove the wall and damage roots in the process, or put something further out and bury the roots deeper, either one impacts the health of the trees. Because adding soil on top of the roots, even if it's on a semi-vertical wall, brings them further from their oxygen supply and can impact the trees. I think this is still an awful lot of density for this site. You're allowed, I guess, 7 under the zoning, or maybe not even 7, 6, I guess, from the square footage you mentioned. So I think this is still a little too much density for what's being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, comments, questions? Yeah.
Andrea Daly, can you hear?
Yeah.
Andrea Daly, Precinct 3, North Shore Avenue Town Meeting member. I have a couple of observations. I think the area is just too dense for the proposal, and I have a question. Right now, if it gets developed, they'll have 24 bedrooms. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Some of these units will be rental, and some of them will be sold. Is that correct?
I think that's up to the developer. I think it's undetermined at this point. Yeah.
All right. If these units are sold to individual people, I want to know how many of these units have the possibility of lofts within them.
I'm sorry, lofts.
Lofts, L-O-F-T-S.
There are lofts in the plan.
There are lofts in the plan.
Is there, if this is sold to an individual person, is there any restriction as to what you can do once you have this building under your control, you own it? Is there any restrictions of what you can do with a loft when you're refinishing it? I'd like to ask that from the building inspector.
You care to respond to that, Rich?
Well, if the zoning board votes if the zoning board put a limit on number of bedrooms on the property or per unit.
So we could put that as a condition that it's 24 bedrooms and only 24 bedrooms. That way the lofts can't be developed as bedrooms.
That was my big question, because I think you can see where I'm coming from. Because it's a very, this happened up off of Newbury Street, across from the Stop and Shop. They bought the properties, and then every one of them, to a man, put in an additional bedroom in the loft, which of course means children. And I'm all for children, because I taught for 40 years, and I have some children that I taught in this room now.
I think I heard from one of them. He's all grown up now.
And also, I addressed that, and is there any way of finding how much the amount of money was for the donation that they made to have an off-site residential unit?
We can ask if you'd like to
We
respond.
didn't make a donation. The board, the Affordable Housing Trust did not want us to do that. They wanted us to instead find an off-site rental unit, which is.
Down the
what
road, down the road.
No, before.
Before
Before
occupancy.
this is permitted, yeah.
So they will fund a unit before this gets an occupancy permit.
What does funding mean? Does it 100% funded, or is it a
It's
token?
70%.
70%?
Or is it 70%
They'll buy the
affordability?
whole apartment.
Correct. The developer has to provide an affordable unit off-site that will meet the affordable housing requirements for someone who is making 70%,
Okay.
not
That was this-
80%,
yeah.
which is standard.
Sure.
70% of the area median income.
And I think the other question was, would you take 24 bedrooms as a condition?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Also, they were talking about walls, and I don't know what type of material that they're going to be using for walls to retain their land, the land from
Site plan issue.
spilling.
I think I'm just going to clarify as much as I can on this retaining wall. It's not the expertise of this board. It would be on the planning board, and I think by the applicant's own admission, they're not even sure yet, because they have to look at that in depth to understand, as David pointed out, root damage that could occur, what type of wall they would use. So we can't answer that.
Thank you. The last observation I wanted to make is that right now on that street, and we use that street an awful lot, my husband, myself, I like to go to McKinnon's, and that's the easiest street for us to go back home to the Danvers Port section. And the street is not extremely wide, and there's an awful lot of traffic on it. And I do want to make a comment about the sewerage system. There has been in the past, and I'm sure it will continue in the future, of having the sewerage back up into people's homes. That was brought up at the last meeting. And if this proposal goes forward, the town would be responsible, I would imagine, at the town's expense, to put in a new sewer line for basically what we're talking about is the 24 bedrooms. And some of these homes are extremely, extremely large in square footage. You're talking about 1,950 square feet, 1,840 square feet, and something more desirable of 960 square feet. And even in 960 square feet, you can put in a two-bedroom house and possibly two bathrooms. I'd even hate to bring up the fact of how many bathrooms there are going to be in this project, where people are going to flush their toilets and use their washer machines to have this sewer overload. These are my concerns, and I'm sure other people have thought of this too. And I'm not in favor of this project. I think that I served on this board. I was chairman of it for 17 years, and I've dwelt with all of these things that you people are doing. And this is something that should be a concern for the board, because we're now looking at some things that the board has granted that are eyesores. And I'm thinking of Pond Street. And that we never thought that would happen. It's just an ugly place, and there are other ugly places in town. So with due diligence, I am not in favor of this at all. They should keep to perhaps, swallow it and have 7 units, not not, sorry, it was, how many units could go on the property? 6.
Between 6 and...
So even if you went to 7, that's fine. But this is a massive, massive, massive thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Issue with regard to the sewer system. All utilities will be reviewed during the site plan review process. They're reviewed by the town engineer. I don't think it's an accurate statement to say that the town is going to have to create a new sewer line for this project by any means, and that would all be reviewed extensively by the town engineer during site plan review.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
This is the guy.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Dan Gagnon of Burley Farm Road. I serve on the board of directors of the Danvers Alarmless Company, the historic nonprofit that owns the Rebecca Nurse Homestead next door. I'll be brief. Would it be possible for me to pass to the secretary some photos to pass down?
Sure.
Our primary concern, being the primary abutter, as you look at the diagram up there, would be on the bottom side and the left corner, bottom left corner there, is the border of trees. Now, with the wall that was mentioned, and in terms of this board's purview, in 2004, this board put a restriction on what kind of a retaining wall could go between this property and the Rebecca Nurse Homestead property, in part to preserve the slope, and in 2004, a 4-foot limit was placed. With that, that meant the effect of that was that the slope couldn't be cut into, because as the current plan of that middle section cuts 15 feet, you couldn't cut in 15 feet and then only build a 4-foot wall. So the intent of the shortness of the wall was to keep that away from the property and avoid cutting in. With a comment earlier
I can just
about...
hold you up for a second. I just want to make a clarification. This board didn't vote on anything to do with the zoning, a wall. It might have been the planning board, but not this board. There's a zoning decision in 2004 to expand to 3 small offices and the display of landscaping items, but there's no mention of anything to do with the retaining wall.
It was on the plan. The wall
Be
at
in
the
the
bottom,
decision.
as it's there, it said 4 feet as required by board, by this board.
Could be in the
Okay.
decision, that's not the whole decision.
Probably went through site plan approval years ago. That's, I suspect what's being.
I think it's site plan, not
yes.
zoning. Okay, just want to make that clarification.
And with our border, as we had mentioned at the last meeting, I'll be brief here. The border of trees is very important to us in terms of a historic site. And looking at the zoning table at the bottom of the plot plan, the bottom right up there, as was mentioned, the side yard, according to the zoning bylaw, should be 30 feet. Here it's only 6.7. The landscaping along the lot line, tying directly in here, needs to be 10 feet. It's only 6.7. Although there's been some improvement in terms of density, really we haven't seen improvement, in fact, almost negative progress compared to the original proposal in terms of how close to our boundary. With the current non-conforming structures, the one in the bottom right along Pine Street, it's a little harder to see when it's colored in here, is roughly the same footprint. The one in the rear, which I believe is the duplex in the bottom left, sort of the furthest left building, it was expressed that it was no more non-conforming than the current structure. It actually is the same number of feet away, but it's longer. So it's 6.7 feet away, but instead of being the corner just 6.7 feet away, more of it is only 6.7 feet away. So in effect, if not in technicality, there's a larger building that is closer to our line. It's just the minimum, still the minimum, but the minimum not just being the corner, but being a little longer. With the garage, that structure, it's 1 story, and there was something that jut out the back. And so this proposal fills in those corners of that section that juts out the back. I'm not sure what that is, but it's the part of the
We
back
show a
of the building.
setback of 9.1 on that
From the new corner.
From the new corner.
Yes, which was the same as the original. But
I thought you
more-
said 6.7.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was the
front.
the side
That's
yard
the
of
front. This
building.
rear
Sorry.
building's at 9.1.
9.1, yes,
Okay.
which is the same as the original, however, less of it was 9.1 feet away.
Yep.
Now more of it is only 9.1 feet away. So that is a negative change in terms of it being more detrimental there. Another issue, one question that was raised was how, why with a redeveloped plan, smaller buildings, why it's still close to the Rebecca Nurse homestead property. As was mentioned with the Crane Brook, I imagine that the next step for a project such as this would be the Conservation Commission. And so it seems as though the new plan actually does, compared to the previous plan, move structures closer to us, probably for the benefit of the Conservation Commission at the next step. And with the photos I handed out, the first one I actually got from the Salem News. It's not my photo. Of that rear building I mentioned is just 9.1 feet away. And you can see right up above behind it is one of our buildings. One of the things I noticed in the zoning table is there's setback, it's not setback listed from nearby structure, it's setback listed from nearby residence. And so I did want to show you that. It's not a residence, but there is a building reasonably close by there. It's just not technically listed as it didn't need to be. And on the other side, as you see, I have two pictures of our boundary of trees. And one thing I wanted to draw your attention to is not just the trees, but the light poles, the Danvers electric light poles. They are not on the plan because they are technically on our side of the line, the Rebecca Nurse homestead. But they're very close to the line, barely over the side. And so not just with walls and digging back 15 feet of the slope does it affect trees, but it could very well affect these poles for the electric light department. They're actually closer than some of the trees are there. And that's all I want to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah.
Briefly, the utility poles, obviously, that's again an item that's going to be reviewed by the planning department and the town engineer. I do have some photos, but I think could I ask a question, because this came up at the last meeting regarding the Rebecca Nurse homestead, and much was made of the fact that movies are made there and films are done, and that the buildings would interfere with the view. Could I ask through you, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
how many movies are made there every year?
Somebody can answer that here from, yep, go to the mic, please.
Mr. Chairman, although we appreciate the question, we sign confidential forms with every film. We can't disclose them until they've been out. I can tell you this past year, we had several incidences for television. We almost had Little Women come to Danvers, and they went to Lexington and Concord instead of the Rebecca Nurse homestead. But in general, we can't really talk about current projects that have happened this year. We sign non-disclosure forms that are worth more than us.
Can you give us an average?
In the past. Let's have the past, not current.
Oh, in the past?
Yeah.
Thinking about last summer, we had
3, 4, more than 5?
3 or 4, as I'm looking at there. Other summers, it's varied. We had, a couple years ago, we had HBO there for a full month and a half filming. So it does vary widely. We're listed on the State Film Office. We have a big listing there. We're approached often. We have regular contracts. It's a very common thing. Some are short, as I mentioned, some are really long. It just varies.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer it for you?
It does, and again, the retaining wall issues you correctly pointed out is something that will be looked at by the planning board, and landscaping, and will be required to do a lot of buffering and a lot of landscaping as with any site. This happens with a lot of sites where you are abutting property that's at a different elevation. I think that plays in well, actually, to the development of this property, because from the Rebecca Nurse house, you look over the top, at least, of the existing commercial building at the front of the site, and that's that elevation actually helps with development of an abutting property that does have the right to be developed in some way. And it has been, in fact, developed. It is a disturbed commercial site now. And what we're proposing is something that we feel is more in keeping with the neighborhood generally, the Residence 1 district and what it's intended for. Although when you look at the neighborhood as a whole, there's an awful lot of other commercial type of development that doesn't fit well with the Rebecca Nurse homestead, given what we're proposing, which is residential.
I think back here on the right.
Richard Bolduc, 222 Maple Street, Precinct 4. In regards to like the sewer system, wouldn't we have wanted to know, is the sewer system able to handle this before
Yeah, that's something
you?
town engineering would handle at, when it goes through site review, which is a different board. That's the planning board.
So before, you wouldn't
Yeah, they
want to know
wouldn't
if
break ground
that's?
until there's a plan.
No, okay.
Yeah. Good question. Mr. Duggan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1, also a member of the Rail Trail Committee. Back to the 6 that are allowed by right per Table 2. So we're doubling that number. Is there some type of hardship or something that would justify going above and beyond what's allowed?
You want to respond?
There's no hardship required in this application. This
'Cause
is
it's
not a
a finding.
variance. This is a finding, and what we have to demonstrate and the board has to find is that what we are proposing is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the commercial uses and the look and the development of the site as it is now. Part of what goes into the viability of a project like this is looking at not only the development itself, but what we have to deal with in changing a commercial site into a residential site. There's a lot of cleanup, as you saw from the photographs that we submitted last week. In regard to this site, there's buildings that'll have to come down. There is site work that will have to be done over and above what would be if this were a wooded site that had never been developed before. So that cost you see frequently when you're talking about substituting or altering a non-conforming use, because you're not starting from a clean slate, you're starting from a developed site. So that all plays into it. But a hardship is not required here. This is not a variance.
Okay, so no hardship
Yeah,
required
that's
because it's a
fine. Well,
finding.
So it's a matter of opinion about whether or not this is more detrimental than what's there today.
That's what we're here to decide.
So
Yep.
when we talk about quid pro quo, so that's kind of a common term these days. So we give away an additional 6 units, and what do we get in return? Just an affordable unit somewhere else for 15 years. So that's really a lopsided give and take, right? If you look at the assessed value for that property today, it's $750,000. That's the assessed value. If you sold these 12 units at $400K apiece, you're talking $5 million. That's the kind of profit that gets extracted from these types of developments. And it's so lopsided, right? The town gives away these additional units, increased density, reduced setbacks, more traffic, and in return, what we get maybe some more tax dollars, but that's minuscule compared to the kind of profit that we see for these types of these projects. So I would urge you not to really go above and beyond what the 6, what's allowed by right.
Thank you. Go with the back there. Again, people, new comments only, please.
Well, it's a public hearing. They're allowed to speak.
I do want to ask a couple questions for Rebecca Nurse Homestead, and also maybe somebody knows.
I need a name and an address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Josh Lohman, 29 Putnam. So the rail trail property, who owns that property at this point?
The rail trail?
MBTA.
Yeah, is it a town-owned property? Is it still?
I believe it's leased by the town from the MBTA.
Right.
Okay, so we have a lot of issues in the Boston area with commuter issues, commuter-related issues. We have to look at the future and the big picture here, and that is traffic congestion, this is one of the things. But what if, in the future, we want to put that back into use as an actual commuter rail system? And how will
The
this?
town has a 100-year lease on it.
It's a 100-year lease, and that's not what's before us.
So this is a current 100-year lease?
I believe so.
I believe I can, Mr. Duggan might be able to speak. Is that accurate, Mr. Duggan?
It's a 100-year
100-year lease on the rail trail?
99 years. Yeah.
So revocable, so they could say, yeah, we do need this.
That's accurate, yep.
Okay, so we do need this transportation, we all know that. So how is this going to affect that in the future? And how is it going to affect the residents there? Because we should also consider them too here, since it's going to be their, home. Is this going to be conform to that use in the future? And if not, should it? So.
Yep.
Because this property is adjacent to the land owned by the railroad, and part of this property used to be used in conjunction with the railroad use many years ago. Once we have a site layout, we actually have to apply to the MBTA to be allowed to build on that property. And part of the process, you see it on the building permit application, I think it used to be there for any development, is there is a question on every building permit application, was this property formerly used or owned by the railroad? If there was, the railroad has to be advised. We have to go in and meet in Boston with the MBTA folks, show them the plan, they decide whether this is ever going to impact their desires in the future.
And what step is that in the process? Is that after planning board? Is that after site review? That's prior.
We will do early on.
Yeah.
Once we know the layout and have a basic plan that we can show them, then we would go in and meet with them.
Good. Thank you.
Quickly. And it's actually an application that we work with the building inspector on. He has to actually file the application with the MBTA.
Additional questions?
Also, this is kind of a rhetorical question, but are these people allowed to have guests?
I would imagine so.
Okay, where are they going to park?
Out of sight.
That's not part of this board's purview. That would be site review.
Okay.
The town requires 2 parking spots per bedroom, and they have offered 2 parking spots per bedroom.
So, and this street, we can't park on that street, right?
On Pine Street?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I believe there's no parking.
Okay. So,
Yeah, there's no on-street parking that I'm aware of in that area.
yeah, and so that's a big issue. Whether it's on this board or not, it's just a big issue to look at.
Well, it might be, but it's an issue all around town. It's not just to the site, right? I mean, the town requires 1 parking spot per bedroom, so anything that gets built in town, that's what they're building to, not just this site.
Right, so, and speaking on the last gentleman's comments, what do we get out of this? We get more congestion, we get bigger issues with the baseball park next door because we don't have the parking for it. This is just a poor choice of a project or a site with a historical site next door. You're pretty limited, so then we have somebody come in and asking us for a special pass to do something that's absolutely ridiculous for this area. And also, I want to make sure I'm going to put the comments in the right place, but based on past experience with the developer, can I comment on different issues with that?
No, we're here for this project only, 141 Pine Street.
Okay. Well, I can say that there's a concern with the Crane Brook here. It's a tributary to the Crane River. From the past, we had other issues and impacts on waterways and with construction projects from the developer. There's been many violations with the state, federal government, only of which the state has basically went after. The town missed them. The town engineering department missed these, and we had to rely on the state to regulate these, which is nonsense, but that's what happened.
Okay, so you're not in favor of this?
Absolutely not. But I'm also not finished here. What we basically have is we also have a project that's being neglected with safety issues. We had promises with another project from the developer that we're supposed to have certain safety precautions.
I'm going to ask you to make your comments towards this project,
Well,
141
yeah, I'm
Pine
concerned
Street.
about this because it's just the
There's no
history
safety
repeats
concerns
itself.
on this project currently because nothing's
Okay.
been done.
Okay, history repeats itself, and I'm concerned because this is a more densely populated area, and I kind of want to let my neighbors aware of what issues we're seeing there. So it is related to this in the long run. It's the same people involved. We also have the traffic issue. What improvements is the developer going to make to the traffic flow? Because it's going to fall on the town, it's going to fall on the taxpayers. That's not fair, because we got a large profit margin here, and what do we get out of it? What's the improvements to the town for this traffic problem? It's already bad there, so what are we going to do? So, and as far as safety goes, we've had in the past asbestos violations. In the past, we've had wetlands violations. We have a river right here. The town hasn't caught them. The residents have, because if you ask me, they weren't paying enough attention to these projects. And then now we currently have safety issues with existing projects in the town. So this just needs to be known for the people. If they're going to experience this project, then this is just a beware of what you're going to be running into here. And it's very concerning next to a historical site such as this. So I think my other comments are going to be for other boards, but I'll be there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Susan Shalkowski.
Hold on, you got to be called upon.
What's the town going to get out of this project? The town is going to get needed housing. The town has made it very clear that housing is needed in the town of Danvers. This is an in-town location where housing is needed. You're going to get a site that's being brought more in conformity with the zoning bylaw by changing a commercial site in a residential district to a residential site. And it's a reasonable and appropriate use of this site. The density is certainly reasonable in comparison to properties that are very close by. Dyer Court, for example, that development of 70 units has square footage per unit of 2,600 square feet. Highland Meadows, about the same square footage as this, and I have a whole list of recently approved and not so recently approved properties whose densities are much higher than this, or certainly comparable to this. Under the new zoning regulations that the town has been putting into place by town meeting, the parking requirements of 2 spaces for a 2-bedroom unit has actually been reduced, and the town's own parking studies have found that Danvers zoning bylaw typically is overparked. There are more parking spaces than what's required. But for purposes of this project, we meet the zoning bylaw requirements for parking. It's been mentioned a couple of times, so I'll mention it here, that this site is used for parking for the baseball. This is a privately owned parcel. There is no right to park here for baseball. And traffic flow, traffic impacts, site plan review. The town looks at that through the planning board, and whether there's any mitigation that's needed, that's discussed at the site plan process.
Yep, understood. Good.
My name is Susan Shalkowski. I live on Crestline Circle, which is down the street from the Rebecca Nurse House off of Pine Street. I have two questions in regards to the proposed project. The first is that going to be a street, or is that going to be a private driveway?
No, it's no different than how it is now. It's a private driveway.
Okay. And in regards to trash removal, is there going to be a dumpster on site, or is there going to be trash pickup from?
No, it's private pickup.
Okay.
Dumps.
So there is a dumpster?
No, curbside pickup.
curbside?
They'll have their own privately funded, though,
Okay.
not on the town.
Couple of concerns. 24 cars is 23 too many in that area. I drive it every day to and from work. I drive it to go to Pete's to pick up something for dinner. I drive it to go to McKinnon's, and at rush hour, it is absolute gridlock. My second concern is with the park and the rail trail there. That exit comes out right almost in an obstruction of the crossing where the rail trail is. And as it is now, thank God the lights were put in, but as it is now, it's a very dangerous area to cross the street. There's kids, a lot of kids in that area, and if you have 24 more cars going in and out, it's a huge concern. My husband and I walk it all the time in the summer because there is no place to park. In regards to the parking, I know it's private property, but people park there. They park at Menino's. They park at Chet's. When they host playoff games, where are all those people going to park? It's a concern.
I don't know how we can sit here, though, and put that on the owner of this property.
No, I understand that.
Private
but
property, you
as
wouldn't want them parking in your lawn.
As a ramification for the town, people are going to be parking in everybody else's neighborhoods.
Again, I don't know what it has to do with this project.
Okay. The other concern is, will the residents here create a conflict with Tapley Park in regards to lights and noise, and will it affect the times that they can play the games? As someone who, our kids grew up at Tapley Park and we coached, even on Crestline Circle, every weekend we can hear the speaker phone from the announcements of the games. Are these people going to want something like that blaring in their windows at 10 o'clock at night? Hopefully they'll be
Can't answer that.
advised of that.
I know I wouldn't.
My last comment is the premise of the finding was to address affordable housing. This does nothing of that, as those proposed units don't look at all affordable. And for some reason, this particular developer often gets free passes. I am not for this project.
Briefly, the premise of this project is not to address affordable housing. It is to bring the property from a commercial derelict property, quite honestly, into an attractive residential development. And traffic concerns will be addressed at the site plan review process. However, the site doesn't have zero traffic now. This is a commercial site, and it could be more busy than it is now. It has been more busy over different periods of time. It's allowed to have contractor vehicles, trucks. Landscaping companies very often work around the clock. They often do snow plowing. That kind of impact is the type of use that has gone on this site. Outdoor storage, merchandise, and those sorts of things. It's a multi-tenanted commercial building for which this board and prior boards have granted relief to allow those variety of different types of commercial uses there. So it isn't correct to say there is zero traffic generation from this site now, and all of a sudden there will be residential traffic generated. That it's not apples to apples.
Right here.
Thank you. Pete Clement, 9 Jersey Lane, town meeting member. Couple of things. The height of the buildings that are there now, can anybody give me a...
Do you have the height of the current building?
The back garage is a single story. Is it 1.5?
Probably like 12 feet. It's pretty low.
prior
The 11,
of the
10.
existing building.
Or, and, yeah, storage.
This is the existing building. It's
Yeah.
a two-story
Yeah.
building.
The one out back, the closest
No, the one
one?
out back is a single story, I believe. The one in the front is a two-story, so the height is going to be comparable, most probably, to the proposed building. It may be a little lower.
It doesn't look like a full two-story. That second story looks like a crawl space.
Well, that's.
So you're going up to 28 feet?
There's
Oh, is it?
offices up there on the second floor.
Oh, okay.
That answer it for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, but by rights, they can put on 6 buildings, or six houses there. I think you ought to keep it to what, by rights, what they can do, all right? Because it is too dense of a situation in the whole area, and none of the residents want it, all right? So I think that it should go to what they can do, and don't push it any further. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, let me give everybody else a chance. You already spoke. Yeah, right there in the back.
Good evening, Mike Daly, Finance Committee in North Shore Avenue, Danvers. So I won't get cross-examined here. Could I request through the chairman of the board that you take a poll of the audience as to who's in favor of this project and who's opposed to it?
Sure, I will probably do that at the end, though.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else for public comment? Yep, right over here.
Hi, Ann Gagnon, 6 Burley Farm Road. Good evening.
Hi.
2 quick comments. I know everyone has heard a lot of articulate comments tonight, and I just had 2 quick thoughts. I think we need to get back to the question at hand here. It's not up to the opponents of this project to examine, justify, explain their position against this project. My understanding is that the burden is on the applicant to somehow demonstrate that there is a need for more than 6 units, which is allowed currently for this project. I have not heard that tonight. And one other quick comment, the applicant's representative just mentioned snow plowing. That's something to consider, that, as we just heard from many speakers, there's wetlands at the back of this property, and there's fragile trees on the other side of this property. So I don't know where the snow that contains all that corrosive salt is going to go, but it might be one last thing that hasn't been addressed tonight. I know you were looking for new comments, so I just thought I'd toss that one out.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
They don't get any snow.
It's not going to snow anymore in New England. Any more comments? I'll go back. Yep, Mr. Yep. Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill Nicholson, Precinct 8, town meeting member. I've sat on that board for 17 years. I used to say, if I could be anything, I'd be non-conforming. Because then all you need is a simple finding that is substantially not more detrimental than what's there now. If we really analyze the situation, even though we're changing from commercial, which has not been exercised in a long time and probably won't be, what are we facing with? To make a decision that it's not more, substantially more detrimental. Well, if you analyze what's going there, even though it's residential, it is more detrimental, because now you've got 12 units, 24 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 4 buildings, 2 cars for each building that doesn't have a garage. They're going to have company. Which is going to cause a problem with parking. So when you analyze everything, and you say it is substantially not more detrimental, the answer is it is definitely more detrimental because of the impact that it is causing the surrounding neighborhood. So keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I will go back to you, and that will be it. I think I've got everybody. I got another second call.
Just to follow up, we have any complaints what's going on there now? Anybody ever say, oh, I don't like the plowing, I don't like that little office building, that 2 cars coming in and out of the parking lot?
That wouldn't come before this board.
Well, I'm just in response to, is this going to be more detrimental? Absolutely, because I haven't heard one bad thing about the property right now, so I hear a ton of bad things. So that's all.
Not very pretty. Not very pretty, but it's empty. I got a new comment. I'll go, let me, if you hold on, Mr. McKenna.
Jim Romeo's 5 Putnam Lane, Danvers. Couple concerns that I've heard come up, and I know that the board's trying to address it the best they can, but one that really kind of bothers me is the parking issue. I know we've talked about it a couple of times, but Mr. Bolduc here runs a business right around the corner. I know many of you residents have houses in the area, whether it's a side road that's quiet now, it's going to be busy. You're going to have cars parking out there. I have 2 children. I've got a 5-year-old who's about to turn 6 and a 14-year-old. They both play baseball at Tapley Park. As it is now, if I pull into Tapley Park, I have to park up by the playground on the grass in staked off areas. It's completely unsafe for kids as it is. It's only going to further that issue, okay? The issue of the junk that I keep hearing around his property, Mr. Prentice, I worked at the trailer shop in Danvers for 13 years. I put 2 plows on his dump trucks. He had 2 one-ton dump trucks and 2 old leaf haulers. This place isn't sending out 24-plus cars every single day of the week. Maybe a truck would go out here, a truck from out front would go out there. There was no added traffic to the road. This production here is going to add multiple issues when it comes to traffic. In regard to the junk, I could pick that up in a weekend. Somebody with a dump truck could pick all that stuff up. It's not a derelicted site. It's not ridiculous looking. It's very clean and presentable from the front. When you take pictures from the back and they fit your needs, that's a different situation. What I think, if this project's granted, what it's going to do is a disservice to every single person in this room that abuts this. Businesses, residents, everyone alike. You need to take a look at the big picture. The big picture is it's going to be a problem. Those people have a cookout. 12 to 15 cars come in. Where are they going to park? They're going to park in Tapley Park during a baseball game over the heat of the summer. There's nowhere else they're going to park because they know they'll get towed. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. McKenna?
Just one more real quick question, Mr. Chairman. Again, David McKenna, 383 Andover Street. The developer said that they would be willing to live with a limit of 24 bedrooms. But how could that be enforced? Probably to the building inspector. Is there any way to enforce that once they're sold?
It's going to be on the deed.
It would be deeded that way. So that's the way it would be enforced.
Yeah,
through the
okay.
deed.
Good luck. Thank you.
Okay, last comment here.
Just a question for the Rebecca Hurst Homestead representative. When you said that there's a
Through the chair, please.
Oh, sorry. Through the chair, sorry. Whenever the gentleman mentioned the building that's abutting the property.
Currently?
Yes. What is the use of that building for Rebecca Nurse Homestead? What are
They don't use it. It's not their building.
the one on their property.
Oh, I don't know what Rebecca Nurse is not before us.
Yep. I'm asking the gentleman a question. It's concerning the community, so so that it's a historical spot.
Maybe I'm not getting your question.
It says
Can
it's
you
the
ask it
meeting house. It says it's a meeting house on the picture, so I believe that's what it was.
You're asking what Rebecca Nurse,
The building.
the building
Yes,
does? What's its function?
Yeah, what's its function currently?
Would you care to respond to that? Yeah. Go ahead up. I don't know.
To the question about the meeting house.
He's asking what you do with that building.
Yeah, so it's an exact copy of the meeting house in Salem Village in 1672. And the purpose of that is it was actually built for a film back in 1984. And so predominantly that's what it's used for. That's where all of our groups, we begin all of our tours in there, all the school groups are in there. In terms of visits to the site, the Rebecca Nurse Homestead itself is the most significant structure, but in terms of usage and time spent, that building might be the most time spent in.
Thank you.
Okay, so my point was I just wanted to know the purpose of that building and if it was a historical structure or if it's going to affect their operations as far as really just the feel of the property being its historic significance. So if he would like to answer that, how will it affect the proximity of the structures that's being put up? How will it affect the operations at the Rebecca Nurse Homestead to that building? Just out of curiosity, if he wants to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was addressed at the first meeting.
It's the gentleman over here.
Go ahead.
Peter Bevins from 13 Watcher Street. I was wondering whether the previous meeting had addressed the archaeological, historical needs of going over a site which may have been ignored initially when buildings were put up there that exist now. But now people are more interested. And until we find Rebecca Nurse, what efforts are going to be made to look for things such as that while excavation is going on in this historic site?
Thank you. All right, care to respond? Attorney McCann.
The development and the construction of this site will follow all regulations and guidelines pertaining to everything.
Thank you. Quick show of hands is people who are not in favor of this project. Thank you. People in favor? All right. That's it. I'm going to close the public hearing at this point. Sure.
I would ask that you indulge the applicant if we could have a 5-minute recess. We've been at this a long time and have an opportunity to discuss, and then we can come back into you.
The board okay with that? 5-minute
Yes.
recess? We'll take a 5-minute recess. Yes, we can. No, she's down here.
If they don't come in, call the next case and they can talk right after. They can. I don't think they're going to come back in right away. I would call the next case. These people have been sitting here all night.
5 minutes and it hasn't been 5, so
Has it?
4.
Let's go to the next case.
I think we have to stop it.
For a little bit, you know.
No, I think we stayed till 11.
We should do that. Just tell him. You want me to go out and look?
Yeah.
I was going to say, to finish it off, you're going to get all the people.
Yeah.
I can't remember the latest stuff in here, but when I first came on the board, we would stay to at least like 10, 15. I mean, we would have 2 sheets. The agendas would be really long. Like nothing like this.
See, this is what I have a problem with, this being 6 feet off the lot line and 29 feet tall. That's my,
What is it now? It's 24. So you're only talking about 5 feet.
I don't know. And this one being 24 feet tall instead of that.
They're coming in.
Okay.
So all we need is 3 votes?
Yeah.
Tell Nate to go, or is he going already?
Okay, I'll call the Danvers zoning board back into session. Please Make sure your cell phones are silenced and hold your comments. We're going to go into our deliberation.
Jeff? Let's let her comment.
Yeah, we'll give you a final comment.
Jeff, can you make sure
Attorney.
he's...
Yeah, he's going. We're good.
Yeah, he's good.
Go ahead, Attorney McCann.
I haven't heard the board, you haven't done your comments, and so I just wondered if we could poll the board at the moment, because at the end of the last meeting, we were of the impression that the project was too dense, but that, that residential was something that the board, at least at the end of the last meeting, had liked the sound of. So I guess we've heard questions and questions and comments from the audience. Could we ask for a poll of the board?
Yeah, I guess we could do that.
We should do our
Without
comments.
comments, you're saying.
We should go to comments. Yeah.
Or you can do comments now, that's fine.
Let's just go to comments.
I didn't know
Oh, you
how
want
much
to know
time you
why
wanted
we're
to
voting,
spend.
which way we're voting?
Yeah, we
Of
need
course
comments.
I will.
We'll just go right to comments. How about that? We'll start down there with you, Becky.
All right. So obviously, we've been bombarded with phone calls, letters, Facebook blown up. So we know the opinion of the town and the people in the town. I think I have two main comments on this. I certainly like this plan better than what we had before, and I certainly would like to see residential in this area versus the commercial industrial buildings. My two main points would be that I would like to see the setbacks more consistent with what would be allowed. Usually we try to stay within 50%, and that may mean less buildings to get to that. The other thing is the parking. Being familiar with condominium complexes, I know that you need visitor parking. I know that you need parking for guests, and that is really under the site plan review, but I hate to say this, but I would rather take away some green space and know that everybody could be on that site that comes to visit those people that are going to live in those units. And again, that probably means there's too many units on that site. So those would be my main comments.
Thank you, Becky. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this site is very unique. We've got Rebecca Nurse on one side, we've got the rail trail, we've got the park, we've got the Crane River on the other side. I wouldn't vote for this the way it sits. In fact, if it was 7 units, I would be on the fence, to be honest. And I know we've heard a lot about traffic on that street. I travel Pine Street every day as well, and it's almost the same situation as the 62 and 35 under 128. It's the lights. You need a left turn light from Pine onto Holton Street. That would alleviate 80% of the problem in traffic there. They don't look at things like that. I don't know why, but they don't. I would not vote for this as that's proposed.
Thanks, Ken. Jeff?
I appreciate all the comments from the audience and their concern about density and traffic, but I have a completely different concern, and that is this 4-family unit being 6 feet off the lot line when you need 30. And we have a historic first period house. They're very rare, and it's very important to preserve the character and nature of that property. And I think with a 29-foot building, 6 feet off the lot line, that's not less detrimental, that's more detrimental than what's there. The existing building, the existing garage, both close to the lot lines. The garage is very low. It's tucked behind the hill. You can hardly see it. If you put a 2-family house there, it's going to be visible from the Rebecca Nurse homestead. And I think it's unreasonable for us to swallow a 6-foot setback when you need 30. So I will not vote for this.
Thank you, Jeff. Ken?
I agree with Ken's comments and Jeff's comments. I would probably be, well, you wouldn't need approval for 6, but I would be approval of 6, actually. I don't think I just think the area is not conducive to more than that. And it's unique, like was stated, between the historical site, the rail trail and the river, and also this four-family unit is 29 feet high to the peak, and that is a lot more than it is now. I think it's like, what, 21 or 22? And what the biggest concern of mine is this hill with the existing retaining wall. You're gonna cut into that hill, and those trees and everything right there. I mean, the trees definitely need to stay. It's a nice buffer, and any nature in that area will be nice to sort of seclude it. So that is a very big concern right there. So I wouldn't vote for this.
Thanks, Ken. And Corinne.
I would not vote for this. We went from 29 one-bedroom units to 12 two-bedroom units, so it's 24 bedrooms. So it's almost identical as far as the amount of people, I guess, that could be living there. And I also think the way these buildings, the 4 individual buildings were put on the site, they're stacked over to the Rebecca Nurse Homestead side to avoid the other issues they would have on the other side of the property. And, you know, I mean, I agree with everyone else. If you had 2 buildings, even if you had the 2 buildings joined with 6 units, that would be more along the lines of what I would vote for.
Thanks, Corinne. And I, too, I appreciate the work that went into scale down what I don't think was palatable to anybody, which was the original plan of 29. But to me, this is also still too dense. I've learned a lot about Rebecca Nurse and other things that are around this site. I hear the neighbors and their concerns. Some of these problems exist, though. They're not due to this site, so I will make that clarity. However, though, I wouldn't be opposed as for this to go from commercial to residential. I think I stated that at our first meeting, but to me, it's too dense. I think we have this density spec for a reason. With that said, I think I'd be okay with slightly more than what's allowed, but certainly not at this quantity and volume. I also echo some of the parking concerns, which again, people need to understand, although that parking's being used for Tapley Field, that's a private property, and if I owned it, I would be making issue with that. So what would you like to do? You clearly don't have the votes to get a finding, and what would you like to do moving forward?
We would like to request a continuance until your next meeting so that we can digest the additional comments that we received tonight.
Okay, we are on for March 16th. Does that work?
Yes.
Could I get a motion, please?
So moved, continue to March 16th.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and for folks that would like to be here, March 16th will be when we hear this again.
Are we here? Are we at Senior Center? Or?
We are here.
We're here, okay.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
And if I could ask to take your conversations outside, because we still have about 5 more cases to get to. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Watching it on TV.
Welcome back, Bob. Did someone wake up Bob? Bob, is he back?
Bob missed all the fun.
That was
I
fun.
know.
It was.
I gotta do it again next week.
He could have driven to the Cape and back.
Okay. Ken, let her rip. Folks, if you could take it outside, please. Go ahead. I'll read right over this.
Our next case is James and Tina Geekus, docket 20-4850, requesting a finding to raise the roof approximately 2 feet in the front setback on an existing non-conforming house in accordance with section 3.11.1A and B of the Danvers zoning bylaws at 22 Mount Carmel Road, zoned R2.
Tell them to.
I did already.
We're trying to run a meeting.
Good evening, citizens. My name is James Kikas. Me and my wife Tina bought the house at 22 Mount Carmel Road almost 2 years ago, and we're planning on doing some work. What we'd like to do is raise our perimeter in the ceilings to go like 9 feet in the house, and so we'll raise the roof up about 2 feet, and that'll enable us to do that.
So is that about the extent of it? You're just looking to raise the roof?
Raise the roof.
Literally,
And
without dancing?
raise the roof.
Okay. And am I correct to understand, it looks like you're already under construction currently?
Yes, we were able to obtain a siding permit, which allowed us to get a little head start on some of tearing off the
Okay,
siding.
because I did a site visit down there yesterday. Okay, is that it? Okay. Bob, we'll start down there with you.
Are you going to stay within the footprint of the house?
Correct.
No further questions.
Thank you, Bob. Becky,
So this is a finding?
this is for a finding.
No questions.
No questions, thank you.
No questions.
Ken?
I have no questions.
No questions either.
And I, too, have no questions. I will go out to the public. Is anybody here to speak? Sorry, we have a letter. Could you read this in, please?
Sure. Mr. Chair, we have receipt of a letter from Michael and Andrea Daly. We do not object and favorably support the request of James and Tina Kikas. Request of a finding to raise the roof approximately 2 feet in the front setback on an existing non-conforming house in accordance with section 3.11.1 A and B, the Danvers zoning bylaws at 22 Mount Carmel Road. And they are from 36 North Shore Ave.
Thank you. I'll go out to the public. Anyone here to speak on 22 Mount Carmel Road?
Ms. Daly.
Yeah, come on up.
I can't send a letter in and speak at the same time.
Yeah, that's double dipping, I think. It's a long night already.
Andrea Daly, Town Meeting Member, 36 North Shore Avenue. We're in favor of this project, and we're going to welcome Jim and his wife, Tina, to our neighborhood. We still belong to Danvers, even we're on the Danvers Peabody line, and we're at the end of the line for a lot of different projects, but welcome to our neighborhood, best neighborhood in the entire town.
Thank you. Okay, we'll come back to the board. Bob?
Someone had a comment?
I'm sorry, do we have another person? Did I miss someone?
That's all right, Peter.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
You're well within your right to come up if you'd like.
I'm fine.
Okay. Bob?
I'll vote for this.
Becky?
I'll vote for this.
I will vote for this.
I will vote for this.
I would vote for this.
I will vote for this.
And I, too, would vote in favor of this. Could I get a motion? This looks like it's a
Move to grant the
two-part finding.
to raise the roof up 2 feet in the front setback in accordance with section 3.11.1 A and B per plan submitted. This is a two-part finding.
I'll second.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
You are all set.
Two-part?
Two-part, Bob.
Congratulations.
I read the same thing again?
Well, you,
It does.
nonconformity,
Yeah, but it's right there.
The building inspector's going to meet you to, I guess, give you the sign off.
He fell
Yes, go out and
asleep
meet him
back
out there.
Wait a minute. We need to do two votes here, and we only did one.
Sorry.
He fell asleep.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
All
Bob.
right, this does increase the nonconformity.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Okay, now you're
opposed?
good.
And it is
Don't
not
meet with
more
the-
detrimental than what presently exists.
All right.
Now you
Thank
can
you.
go outside.
Good luck.
Yeah, go meet him out in the hall.
Okay, moving on.
He didn't write it down, I didn't know we had.
William Moody, docket 20-4851, requesting a modification to an existing variance docket number 19-4832 to allow a breezeway addition in accordance with Table 2, Section 7 of the Danvers zoning bylaws at 39 Pine Street. This is R2.
We've seen you before.
You look
very familiar.
Hello there. A couple months ago.
Just want to let you know, my daughter loves your dog.
Don't waste anybody's time.
My daughter wanted to steal your dog. That was me in your driveway yesterday. Go ahead, tell us what you'd like to modify.
So, we would like to add a mudroom to the garage that you guys approved for us a couple months ago. It was kind of an oversight by us. After, we haven't started the project.
Right.
And we know the mudroom needs to have the frost walls attached to the existing house if that's possible.
Okay. And how did this come about? Is this just in discussion with the building inspector, or just something you just wanted to add?
No, just something we wanted to add, just for convenience, just to, when you drive in the garage, just to be able to stay out of the
Stay out of the
weather.
cold, right.
Right, and be able to just walk into the mudroom and be in the house.
That's what I wanted to do.
Instead of having it separated.
Yep.
So by the picture, the breezeway would be incorporated just in that doorway and the grill. You guys have this picture?
Yep.
Yes.
So the distance is 6 feet wide by 13 foot 6. That would attach to the existing structure to the garage.
Okay, is that it? Okay, Corinne, start down there with you.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Ken?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Jeff?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. And Ken again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It has a door that goes to the outside as well.
The breezeway?
Yeah, this
The
door.
proposed mudroom?
Yeah. That goes to the outside?
Correct.
Okay. No further questions.
All right. Becky?
Okay. Can I just ask the building inspector?
Yeah, sure.
Is there any issue with attaching this garage to this house?
One issue on his plan, he's citing the old size of the garage on his, in a note on this.
This plan is the wrong size?
Yeah, that, I didn't scribble that out.
That was his original proposal for the zoning.
And we changed it,
To
right?
30,
Yeah, it's 30, 20.
That's- I just
Remember, we
wanna make
moved the
sure-
lot lines a little bit.
I remember
We
that.
pushed the setbacks a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
And I will
the
say the neighbor came in this morning.
yes.
In the back.
Is she here?
No, he left.
Oh, sorry. Where? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So there was she had sent an email in, and we kind of tried to figure out what went wrong. Anyway, she made 3 requests in an email that got read into the first hearing, first thing.
About the windows and everything, yeah.
Windows, an 8-foot
Right.
setback, and she wanted the garage to align.
Right.
That got lost in translation, or whatever. That was the first thing read in. You were at that hearing. You said you didn't have any problems, as long as, and so she came in, she thought the garages were supposed to align, and I said that never got in the decision.
Okay.
And I said, the zoning process is a give and take, so he didn't get everything he wanted, and the neighbors didn't get everything they wanted, but that's all. There was a little miscommunication.
Is that now cleared up, Rich?
Well, I'm just confirming that the garages
Isn't-
are not lining up, because that's not in the original decision. And just
Okay.
to make sure everybody understood that dimensions on there is the original dimensions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, on the plot.
So you're only voting for the breezeway, the garage is approved 30 by 28.
Right. This is a modification to add a
Just the space
mudroom.
between.
Just the mud.
Right, the
Right.
mudroom meets all the setback requirements, but again, the board voted on a detached garage and variance, I wanted to move back.
So this is no longer detached. Got it. Becky?
Okay, so I'm okay with it as long as it's what we approved before for the garage, and you're okay with that, right? Okay. All right, I'm good.
Any additional questions? No? Bob?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, well, questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
I do have a couple. So there'll be 3 doors here, one to come out of the garage, one to get into the house, and one to exit the mudroom to the outside.
Correct.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't have any questions. I'd go with this.
Okay. Thank you.
That was quick.
Any other
wanna-
additional questions or
speak?
comments from the audience?
Okay.
Hearing none. Did I start down there with Corinne? Yes. Corinne?
I would vote for this.
I would vote for this, too.
I will vote for this.
Okay.
I will vote for this.
Becky?
I'll vote for this.
I also will vote for it.
And I too see this as a minor improvement or addition. So could I get a motion, please?
I move to grant to modify the variance to build a garage and add a breezeway connector in accordance with Section 7, Table 2 of the Danvers zoning bylaws. The hardship is the same as the original variance.
Second.
I've got a motion and second. Any further discussion? None? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Good luck.
Good luck, guys.
If your dog's missing, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
No, thank you. We're a cat house.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, our next case, John Gardner, docket 20-4852, requesting a special permit for an oversized extended family living area. The lot is undersized in accordance with section 9.3.3.3 and 9.3.3.2 of the Danvers zoning bylaws at 10 Delaware Ave. This is zoned R3. Play your threes.
Good evening. Thank you for hanging in with us. Go right ahead. What would you like to do?
We're proposing to build an in-law on my son's property. My son bought the house back in November. Before he does any renovations, we'd like to have this passed. Though I know it's an undersized lot, but it does meet the setbacks. And we're asking for a little more square footage on the FLA.
Okay. So this is a special permit?
This is a special permit.
Because it's oversized.
Yep,
after.
and this is R3.
If it was 750 square feet, we wouldn't need to be.
Okay, is that the extent of it?
Basically.
You're just looking to go outside the 750 square feet?
Right.
But this addition meets all setbacks?
It meets the setbacks.
Okay, we'll stop down there with you, Bob.
How big is this going to be?
1,058.
The family living area is going to be 1,000 feet, 1,058, I believe it is.
That's a big EFLA. All this that you put in yellow, that's going to be the size of it?
Yes.
Why do you need
Some of
so
that,
much?
some of that is going to be addition to the main house.
Oh, well, you didn't delineate that.
It's in the big plan. It's delineated in the big plan.
Yeah, I see that. So this whole thing is not going to be the EFLA?
No. The front part of it is going to be added to the existing house.
Can you come over here?
Sure.
What part of this is the EFLA?
The red. The red on here.
This is the one I want to
basically
use.
here. Basically,
Well, from here back is the EFLA. All right, so this is just in addition to the
this
house.
is going to be in addition to the house. It's going to be a master bedroom.
All right. And you're going to have over 1,000 feet on an EFLA. That's
Not
almost a
much.
house.
This
That's
is 30
big.
by 36.
Why do you need one that big? Who's going to live in there?
Me and my wife, my son is, and my daughter-in-law and the kids.
You're all going to live in the EFLA?
No, me and my wife are going to live in the attic.
Well, why do you need it that big if it's just the two of you? Why don't you go over to the microphone?
Well, we're coming from a very big house.
I understand that, but
We're downsizing, actually, believe it or not.
for an EFLA, you're upsizing.
Yeah.
See, the problem I have is that's almost a second house. And that's awful big. I have no other questions.
Thank you, Becky.
So you're going to have a common, a bathroom that you're going to share with the main house?
The main house now has no tub, and for the children, we were going to put a tub in the added bathroom.
Okay. Is that going to be your bathroom, too?
We'll share it with the
With the kids?
with the kids.
Aren't you nice?
See how that works out.
Let's know how that works out. Yeah.
Old people want showers, you know.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's going to be a shower, too.
All right, and then you have a common washer dryer area? All right, so you're gonna have a kitchen, you're gonna have one bedroom and a living room, is that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and, okay. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Becky. Ken?
I think all my questions got answered. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so on this plan, what you're actually calling your part of the F lot is 30 by 36.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's just a little over, 1,058 square feet. Okay, so this whole front section,
There's an addition to
this yellow section's the addition to the house. Okay, all right, I understand. No more questions, thanks.
Thank you. Ken?
So is it all first floor?
Yes, all one floor.
All one floor, all right. So, yeah, that's good. So you don't have to, as you get older and older, you don't have to traverse stairs and stuff like that. So that's
the plan.
Yeah, that's good. All right, I have no other questions.
Corinne?
I'm just trying to figure out, this red space is what you propose, correct?
Correct.
And the blue space is common area between both the house and the EFLA. So is this a kitchen, like a kitchen family room?
Yes, the kitchen, this will be the kitchen, and there will be a counter here.
Family room. And so this is your bedroom? And are these closets?
Can I ask another question, too?
10 by,
Any more questions, Corinne?
No, that's it. Thank you.
10 by
Becky,
10.
yeah, go ahead.
So, for the building inspector?
Sure.
Can we have an EFLA without a bathroom?
Well, I went through this whole thing with them, so
Because the bathroom is in the main house, not the EFLA.
Well, then it becomes part of the F1, no?
Well, it was,
common area.
you know, I had the same question, and the existing house does not have a tub, so they have kids, so they proposed that the tub would be the shared part of that.
So the EFLA uses the bathroom in the main house?
Right.
Is that how you're looking at it?
More or less.
Yeah, this door.
Yeah, I get that, but do
But
we have...
that's not
I
being
mean,
counted towards the square footage?
Correct.
Is not.
It is not.
Because it's shared.
I don't know. It seems odd to not include the bathroom in the EFLA, square footage. That's my comment.
Okay, so why more questions? Okay, I have another question actually for you, Rich, as well. So we're here on a special permit just on the EFLA portion of this, not the other bump out they're doing in the front, correct?
Correct.
Because it meets setbacks.
Right, so there's two special permit, well, there's two requests under the special permit. One, the lot does not meet the current R3 zoning, so it's to put an addition on EFLA, that's a special permit requirement, and then for the oversized EFLA, that's a
Okay, so it's because it's a non-conforming lot, and we're adding an EFLA to it, that's oversized.
correct.
Thank you. All right, any additional questions from the board? We'll go out to the audience. Any questions or comments on 10 Delaware? None? Yes? No? Okay, we'll come back. I think I started with you, Bob.
Yeah, I think it's too big, particularly if you add the bathroom in it. You know, I can see over the 750, but this is almost like a second house.
Thank you,
I
Bob.
won't vote for it.
Becky?
Yeah, I think what's adding to the space is the closets. I mean, they're as big as where you would put a bathroom.
There's not going to be a basement.
Hold on, we're deliberating.
I don't know, I'm going to wait for comments. from
Thank you,
us.
Becky. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got to agree with Bob. I think it's a little big. I mean, it's not like we're going over by 50 feet or something like that. I mean, we're going over by 300 or more.
more
Yeah,
than that.
more than 300.
I'm gonna wait and see what the rest.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Jeff?
Yeah, I think it's too big.
How big is the bathroom? Can we get a square footage on that?
I think he's got those dimensions, 26 and a half by 30, by 3 and an 8?
16 by 25,
Can't tell.
is that right? No.
9'3".
Like 16 by 10 approximately.
So 160.
160? So that would bring it up,
16 by
the
10.
EFLA up to,
1,200, roughly. Jeff, comments, questions?
I think it's too big.
Too big, thank you. Ken?
12, 18.
So again, you're meeting the rear setback, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah, so, and what is, you can have a 750, that's pretty small, right? So, I mean, 750 is what is.
That's the bylaw, that's
Yeah,
our
yeah,
guideline.
yeah. I think I'd be okay with this. I think I would approve of this.
Thank you. Corinne?
You know, I'm on the fence, but I do have to say, I agree that the closet's big, but I understand your concern. So, but I think if you rearranged it and had the closet in the common space, even if you both used it, but had it in either common space or part of the other house, you could significantly reduce the amount of the EFLA, still have all the same space and the same closets, just configure it differently, and then it would work.
So you wouldn't vote for
We're
it?
trying to keep the bathroom closer to the main house because of the drainage and the sewer pipes.
Well, no, I mean, you could keep the, well, I guess, I mean, if you kind of move this closet, though, and maybe move the bedroom back and move the bathroom up, you'd kind of be in that space, and then just put the closet either in the front of it or somewhere else. Now, again, I'm not like walking through your house, so I don't know where the corridors are and where the doors are.
Right here.
I mean, I guess I can figure it out. But I do think you can configure it to kind of keep all the same space, but just have the EFLA be reduced, is all I'm saying.
So you're not in favor as it is currently?
I think it's a little too big.
And I have to agree with the other members of the board. I think it's oversized. And not that we haven't voted to allow oversized EFLAs, but this one, I think, stretches it a little too far. So right now, you don't have the votes. You can continue it and try to rework it. You can have us vote on it, or you can withdraw.
Go out for the next meeting?
No, that would be a continue.
Continuance.
Continue.
You
Work
can
the
continue it. If you are going to rework your plan, we would need it the Tuesday prior, which that date would be, we would be continuing this to March 16th. And that date, to miss everything over there, is March 10th by noon. If that's not enough time, we can push it out one more meeting.
Or
It's
you
up to
can tell them if you don't have it ready.
Right.
March 10th?
Can have it by March 10th. It has to be in the office, that way they get it out to us for review. So, hold on. So could I get a motion to continue this to March 16th? You gotta come up and talk, and who are you?
The decision.
Name and address, please.
Right now,
Yeah. Well, you're here on 10 Delaware, correct?
10 Delaware.
And your name?
Sandra Gardner.
Uh-huh.
I'm just curious as to where you mean to reconfigure, because we're going to have to go back to this.
Well,
diagram
just-
and draw everything out.
I'm sure the architect that you used understand what the zoning is for EFLAs, so just tell him that the board thinks that the EFLA's too big, and you want to try and keep as much of the square footage, kind of move things around so that the EFLA in the common space, so your bedroom, the bathroom, and you know, that great room, which was the kitchen family room, kind of stays the square footage, but take that closet space and move it in such a way that it can be considered common space, so therefore it's not calculated into the EFLA square footage.
Because we have no basement and no attic. We have one closet.
Oh, no, no, no. I am not, I do not want to deprive you of the closet space. I'm just saying, if he configures it.
It's a builder in town that did this for us, and he had it smaller, but
Yeah.
it's not even operable, I guess.
Yeah, we'll just explain to him what our concerns are, and I'm sure he can probably come up with something that would pass the board, but yet, you know, give you that extra storage space that you need.
You probably should have brought him with you.
I know it.
Okay, I got a motion and a second to continue this to March 16th.
3/16.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We'll see you on March 16th.
Thank you. Long night, any restaurant?
Yeah, you can put
Oh,
me
no,
down.
we have another one.
No, we got one
The
more.
sign.
It's a sign.
Are they even here?
We ready?
Rip it.
It's our final case of the evening, 194 Endicott Street, LLC. Docket number
I didn't see
20-4853.
her sitting in the back.
Requesting a variance to attach 2 vinyl banners to a freestanding sign with 4 uplights to illuminate them in accordance with Section 37 of the Danvers zoning bylaws at 194 Endicott Street, and this is Zone C3.
Thank you. Hi, good evening.
Hi, Ann Lanfair Bistany, representing 194 Endicott Street.
Is the owner here?
No. One of the owners, there was 2, he just passed away recently,
Well, sorry to hear that.
so I'm here representing him.
Okay, what would you like to do?
Well, we just want to add 2 banners to the front. I do the karaoke there, and we want to promote the karaoke and the brunch. The sign that they have is, everybody drives by it. It's like a washout, you can't even see it. So we need something that will create people to want to come in and eat there and have some fun.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
She's not the owner?
He is not.
We have no authorization from the owner.
Yeah, there is.
There is?
I included them in them, that I could represent them, yeah. There should be a paper for that. Steven, I think you've got it right there on the front.
They don't have.
The power of attorney or something?
You know what, your package
No,
is
it just
bigger
Has
than
to be a
mine.
letter.
But I only have like 3 sheets.
Interesting.
Yeah, we don't have anything
Yeah.
like that.
You don't have an authorization.
Yeah, I don't have it. Can't find anything.
It's the deed.
Let me go,
Yeah, I get
let
like.
me go, hold on, let me go to the building inspector. Did you guys get an authorization that you're aware of?
On the front page, where we signed it.
No, that's not an authorization.
Oh, is that
You're
the-
talking about,
That's just putting somebody's name.
we need a separate letter, yeah.
That's, that's the big one I had to have.
Do we need to continue this?
Those 2
We're
are the,
okay?
those 2 are the managers of the LLC?
Yeah.
Stephen and
One is the
Anne Marie?
owner.
Huh?
One is the owner. Stephen is the owner.
Well, if it's an LLC, they're the managers of the LLC.
Oh, okay. And Scott is the other one.
Okay.
And Keith is the one who passed away.
We can press on?
Okay.
Okay. So you want to add a sign?
That's it.
What to add?
Where did I start last time, Bob? Corinne, questions?
I'm just gonna grab this. So basically, you want to add these 2 at the bottom.
Yeah, one on each side.
Okay.
Yeah, one is on one side and then one is on the other side.
This is the name
Okay.
of the
Because there's
owner,
a-
Travel Leather Company?
Columns have a
That's
space
just
of about
to
a
care
foot,
of.
so it doesn't wrap around and they don't make it two-sided, and half of it,
Oh, I
well,
see.
the ends will be covered. So we got 2 separate signs so that they wrap around, so you can see it from both sides.
Okay. Okay. No other questions?
Thank you. Ken?
So you're gonna have 4 little spotlights, looking at that? And,
Facing this way,
okay,
like diagonal.
and those will be just regular, like,
Regular round
convention,
spotlights.
round spotlights? And what time will those aren't gonna be on all night, right? They'll
No.
be shut off?
Right, there's a timer on the sign out front anyway, which I don't even think they use.
Okay.
There will be now.
Yeah. And what time are you're open till what time? 10:30 and
During the week,
Yeah.
they're open till 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock in the morning?
Right.
Okay, and then those will cut off right after?
Yes, when they close down, yep.
Okay, and no other questions?
Thank you, Ken. Jeff?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a variance, correct?
Yeah. It's forever.
Yeah, I got a little issue with that.
Question?
This is vinyl banners. It's not wood, it's not plastic, it's
No,
vinyl.
It's vinyl. If there's a tremendous wind, they're gonna blow away probably.
I have no further
We have to
questions.
tie
I
them
guess.
down on it.
Becky?
No questions.
Bob, questions?
Yeah, first of all, I have an issue with the vinyl. I think it's kind of honky-tonk, the look of the vinyl. The problem I have is, if we grant this variance, we have it forever. And you could put any kind of sign in these dimensions you want. And if you go out of business, the next guy can put any sign they want. So, really not a question, but I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Bob. I don't know if I really have any questions. I think you spelled out the dimensions are 4 feet by 8 feet, correct? So we're looking at a 32 square foot sign, and that's times 2, correct? Because one on each side?
On each side, a foot of each side of it is wrapped around the pole, the column.
So what's the dimensions on the sign?
Well, it's the banner itself is 4 feet by 8 feet, but putting it up, it wraps around the column. It's the only way to attach it.
That's not part of the sign.
It has grommets.
So she's going to lose a little bit of the left and right edge, you're saying?
Right, that's why it's.
But the same sign on each side, correct?
Yes, same exact thing.
Okay, I don't have any additional questions. Any questions from the board? Yes? From the audience, sorry, from the public. You're on the board.
You know,
I'm getting punchy, it's 9:45.
You spent more time here than I did today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Can you mention what the name of the business is?
On this sign?
No, well, this address, because
it's
it's
Tap and Vine.
Tap and Vine.
Tap and Vine, that's what I thought.
Endicott Grill now.
Endicott Grill, it's 194 Endicott Street.
Well,
Oh,
the Monroe Muffler place is on the same property.
yeah, okay. I thought it was still Tap and Vine. I thought I still saw those signs there.
Endicott Grill.
Okay.
I think that sign
So-
changed.
It's been changed a few times.
These vinyl signs, they move in the wind, right?
No.
So,
They won't. They,
You just
the
said
way
they
they're
would.
tied on. No, I'm saying if we have like hurricane force winds,
no, I
It's not stationary.
just mean in typical, because there's a restaurant, I think it's Wendy's, that has 2 signs that kind of just always are moving there, and there's,
Those are illegal.
Yeah, they're not supposed to have those.
Those are illegal.
well, that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that those, we don't need signs like that. They're distracting to people that are, to motorists, and again, to Mr. Zanetti's point, that it looks kind of hokey, right, that you have those, so.
these are stationary, they don't move.
So if these are actually tied to the inside of the existing sign, and the square footage isn't extreme, then it sounds like they wouldn't last very long, but like, if they wore out, they could be, by right, be replaced. Right? Question from my colleague on
Your
town
esteemed
meeting.
colleague?
He's asking if there was possibly, I guess, put some holes in it that the wind would
Is it
be able
permanently
to
mounted?
pass through, so.
It does have grommets.
So it could be permanently mounted versus the technique you're trying to use, which is
Yes.
wrapping it.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's also some signs where they can put little flaps in there so the wind will
Yeah.
pass through rather than kind of making it balloon out.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sign that's already there, there's a limit for the square footage, right? So would that be calculated inside those posts? So
Would be
the
the
perimeter
entire-
of the entire freestanding sign would
Entire
allow?
image. It's the entire image.
So,
I think what he's saying, no, it's not, I think what he's trying to say is,
Hold on. Ask your question.
so the existing sign today is 2 pillars, I think, and then a sign at the top, right? So
Right.
if you filled up the interior space that's open now, is that an additional square footage?
I'll go to the building inspector. I believe we draw a box around the letters.
Yes. That sign is there by variance to begin with. The whole, I mean, I think Monroe was built before we had sign regulations, so there were signs all over that building. So there's a lot of, I mean, there's a whole list of zoning
Oh, yeah,
rules
that-
property, and half of it is for sign.
So I guess it doesn't really add to the square footage from a legal perspective.
It does.
It does.
Does it?
It's a separate sign.
We don't count the support columns, but any,
Oh, I see, okay. that's-
And the image.
So the columns aren't calculated?
No.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board? Yeah,
I
Ken.
have one, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the building inspector. If we do grant this variance and it goes to another owner, can they put something other than a vinyl sign? Can they put wood or
Yeah.
metal or whatever they want?
They can put anything.
Square footage.
Just the square footage.
We're
Thank you.
granting this.
No further questions, thanks.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the board? Corinne, we'll start down there with deliberations.
I think I would vote for this.
I would vote for this, too.
Ken? Jeff?
I would vote for this.
Ken?
I'll wait to hear what everybody else says.
Becky?
I'm definitely not voting for this. I mean, it's unattractive, and it wouldn't, I'm not voting for a vinyl sign. And it will permanently increase the signage for that building, forever, that will be allowed to be a sign. So, I mean, we want things to be attractive in this town, permanent signage, permanent lettering, constructed properly, not vinyl signs. I would never approve this, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Becky. Bob?
Vinyl sign or not, we don't need any more signs. You've got a nice attractive sign there. Now you're gonna put up karaoke and all that kind of stuff. And if we vote for this, that's forever. Anybody can put anything they want in that space. And I think we got more signing on Endicott Street now than we need. Also, you've got it on the backside. People can't see it from the other side of the road. There's too much traffic going on Endicott Street. You can't see that sign coming down from the other side. Anyway, I won't vote for it.
Yeah, I too, I agree with Becky and Bob. I just think this increases unnecessarily the square footage that we've already given a variance for on this site. So, and the temporary nature of a vinyl sign, I wouldn't go for it. If it were a more attractive sign, I wouldn't go for it. So you don't have the votes. You have choices, but you can either withdraw or you can ask for a vote. I don't see a point in continuing it though, because I don't see anyone changing.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, sure, Ken.
Since this is a variance, like Bob said, it continues with the property, so the next owner could put another sign down. If this was somehow like some temporary signage, maybe we might consider something like that, but nothing like this, so I would not vote.
In vinyl, wouldn't that be temporary though? It's not metal.
Once you have a variance, it's just a sign.
Anything you want on
You
it.
can put anything you want. Wood, metal,
The problem is the
anything.
sign that's there, everybody goes by it. 'Cause you can't even
You
see
have
it.
to find another way to advertise your
There's gotta be another
karaoke.
Yeah.
Go online, go on Facebook, go on.
Well, I do all that.
Yeah.
I do all that. I mean, I'm just helping them out because, like I said, you know, when he died, he passed away, and he was sick, and he had brain tumors and everything. And they're dealing with all of that themselves. And
Yeah.
so I told them that I would come and do this.
Well, what would you like to
And I
do?
already bought the signs, actually. And then I found out we had to have the variance. Because he was told when he bought the property that he had the variance. And then there was something to do with the muffler place next door having some freestanding something. So that's why I'm here.
She
So what do I have
should
to
withdraw. You should withdraw.
Well, you should withdraw.
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 And what does
Without
that-
prejudice.
Without prejudice, that means that
You
we
could
take
come
no
back.
action on it, and you can come before us again down the road if you want. If we vote on it, you wouldn't be able to come before us for 2 years.
I will withdraw.
Okay.
Okay.
Could I get a motion, please? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Favor. Aye.
Aye.
Danvers.
Good night, Danvers.
Danvers.